What a night for a ball game in Philadelphia. Temperatures got into the 80s. The humidity is low. Spectacular, and the big crowd is gathering for the second time today. The Phillies won the first game of their day-night doubleheader from the Mets, and it was not easy, although they got a big lead early, including this home run by Ben Francisco in the fourth. That made it 2-0. Shane Victorino hit a two-run shot in the fifth inning, and then it was 4-0. They were still leading 5-2 into the ninth, and Brad Lidge came on to try and close it out, but he had given up a run. And then Jeremy Reed hit this single, and that made it a 5-4 game. Lidge finally, with a tying run on base, struck out Angel Pagan, and the Phillies held on to win 5-4. Now, as they go for the sweep, coupled with that win, the loss by the Florida Marlins, second place in the National League East. They lost to Washington, and now the Phillies have a 6-game lead, and their magic number to clinch outright the Eastern Division title is down to 5. Hello, everyone. I'm John Miller, along with former Mets general manager Steve Phillips and Hall of Famer Joe Morgan. Welcome to Sunday Night Baseball. Now, the Phillies are obviously getting closer and closer to another division title and another season of October baseball. But the slugging Phils aren't doing a whole lot of slugging right now. Although, Joe, they do have those 4 big 30 home run guys, each of whom has 30 or more home runs. Howard, Utley, Worth, and Ibanez. Still impressive.
Well, John, they are impressive because they lead the league in home runs. And look, last week when they were swinging the bats, it seemed to Charlie Manuel that they were all worried about their year-end statistics. They were trying to get to 30 home runs. So Charlie had a meeting on Monday after they had lost 4 in a row to the Astros. So all of a sudden, Charlie started talking to him about hitting with runners in scoring position, or with their 11th, hitting with runners in scoring position with 2 outs, which they're last in the league. He wanted them to focus more. Don't try to drive in all the runs with home runs. Let's get some singles. Let's get Jimmy Rollins and Victorino started at the top of the order. Let's do some base running. Let's move the runners along. And all of a sudden, he feels like they're focusing better. Although they hit 2 home runs to drive in 3 of their 5 runs in the first game today, he feels like they're focusing better now, and that's what they need. Last year in the playoffs, 64 times of their 64 runs, 32 came on home runs. So he knows that may not happen again. So he wants them to play better baseball.
All right, so the Phillies on top. Everything is going well, except could be going better. Now, the Phillies are going for the sweep of this day-night doubleheader with the Mets, and they are sending one of the game's great pitchers of his time, really, to the mound in this ball game. We're talking about Pedro Martinez, 218 career victories. And Steve, the Phillies picked up Pedro to bolster their staff for the stretch run, and he really has not disappointed.
Well, you're right. They got him really to round out the back end of the rotation. You go back to early July, Pedro Martinez wasn't signed by anybody. Nobody really wanted him. The Philadelphia Phillies called. They signed him to a contract on July 15th. They've gotten him in shape, and he's done nothing but be fantastic for them so far this year. In his 6 starts, they've won all 6 games. He's 4-0 with a 3.64 ERA, and he's been unbelievable. The question was, could he throw strikes? Would his command and control be there? Well, he's vintage Pedro Martinez. Going back to 1900, he's second all-time in strikeout to walk ratio. This year, 27 strikeouts, 4 walks. Command of the fastball is there, and using his curveball and changeup to get the hitters to swing and miss. Pedro Martinez is locked in. Every time he pitches, it's an event. They score runs behind him, 9 runs per game in run support for Pedro Martinez, so everything working when he's on the mound.
So here's Pedro, a former Met. He's going against the Mets, trying to get the Phillies closer to October baseball. Pedro is ready to go. He's heading in for the bullpen. He'll be facing the Mets and David Wright when we return.
Men's, the official multi. Night Baseball is presented by Taco Bell. Think outside the bun. And in part by One A Day Men's, the official multivitamin of MLB, specially formulated for men. The new 2010 Lincoln MKS with the available EcoBoost V6 engine. Lincoln, reach higher. And Budweiser. Reach for the perfect combination of flavor and refreshment. Budweiser, the great American lager.
Citizens Bank Park in Philadelphia, our venue for Sunday Night Baseball. David Wright, whom you saw there fleetingly, will be up third in the inning. And let's take a look at the Mets batting order presented by Taco Bell. Luis Castillo, the veteran, the second baseman, hitting .309. Corey Sullivan in right field, .279. David Wright at third. He hit 2 home runs yesterday, including the game winner in the 9th inning, hitting .315. Now at 10 home runs. Carlos Beltran just back this week from the disabled list, hitting .337. Daniel Murphy is at first base. Fernando Tatis in left field, hitting 6. Brian Schneider, the catcher. Anderson Hernandez, the former Washington National, at short. And Tim Redding is the pitcher, batting 9th, all up against the veteran Pedro Martinez. Pedro trying to keep on doing what he has done so well for so many years, and done particularly well for the Phillies. Pedro, who spent 4 seasons with the Mets, although by the end he was injury plagued and he was not the same Pedro. 1 ball and no strikes to Luis Castillo facing Pedro Martinez. At the knees for a called strike. Todd Titchener is the home plate umpire, and he's given that low knee-high strike right there.
Well, Pedro, in his starts, they're 6-0 in his starts. He's 4-0. He's given up 5 home runs, more home runs than walks, and all the home runs have come against left-handed hitters.
That's a flare into left field, a base hit.
And Luis Castillo wouldn't like you to call that a flare. He does that a lot. He just kind of slaps it the other way.
A line shot flare.
That's his best shot right there.
Right, that's his best shot. I mean, he slaps the ball the other way, and John's going to flare him.
You saying he slapped it?
Yeah,
he hammered that one.
Well, one of the things that's happened to Pedro Martinez this year is he's gotten hammered in the first inning. A .370 batting average against him in the first inning of his 6 starts this year. So early on is where you want to get Pedro.
I was here just after we did Sunday Night Baseball 2 weeks ago, and Pedro started against Tim Lincecum, the young Cy Young winner of the San Francisco Giants, and it was a matchup that lived up to its billing. The great veteran, 3-time Cy Young winner Pedro against the young stud Tim Lincecum, and Pedro got the best of him 2-1. The first batter of the game, Eugenio Velez, hit a home run against Pedro, and that was the end of it. The only run he allowed to the Giants in that game. And there's ball 1 to Sullivan. Corey Sullivan hitting .279, .364 on base average. And David Wright is out on deck. Pedro Martinez, 218 career victories. He's won more than 100 in each league. Just off the outside. 2-0.
Well, the one thing you notice from Pedro, everything is down, John. He used to use the high fastball a lot. Now he tries to make sure that every pitch is down, even the fastball.
He's got a big pitch here now, 2-0. Castillo, the runner at first, used to be a prolific base stealer, no longer. He's had knee problems. And a foul will go out of play.
One of the things to keep an eye on in this game is the velocity for Pedro Martinez's fastball. The last few seasons with the Mets, the velocity had fallen off. He was mostly 85, 86 miles per hour. This year he's been averaging about 89. At times can get to 92 with that fastball. And that's important because of the differential between his fastball and his changeup. The changeup is his put-away pitch, especially to the left-handed hitters.
2-1 to Sullivan. Castillo at first. Howard on the bag with it. That ball into center field. And in for it comes Victorino. One away.
Take a look at the Philadelphia Phillies defensively, and obviously one of the best defensive teams in the game. And Raul Ibanez in left field, Shane Victorino in center field, a Gold Glove last year. Jason Worth in right field, one of the better throwing arms in the game, one of the better throwing outfielders. Pedro Feliz, an outstanding defender at third base. Jimmy Rollins, the 2 Gold Gloves at short. Chase Utley and Ryan Howard on the right side of the infield, and Carlos Ruiz behind the plate. Jimmy Rollins, really the leader of this team defensively, had an outstanding errorless streak. Snapped on Thursday, made 2 errors, but 86-game errorless streak. Where he has struggled offensively this year, he has not taken it into the field. He's been making plays.
So here's David Wright. 2 home runs here yesterday. And a called strike from Pedro, 88 miles an hour with the fastball. David Wright is hitting .315, and his on-base average is above 400. But the power has not been there, and that's been a hot topic among Mets fans in New York as to why. And he fouls one back and out off to the right side of the backstop. The count is 0-2. Some thought it was the new ballpark, Citi Field, that it was too big. But Wright has hit no more home runs on the road than he's hit at home.
Well, John, I don't think it was a coincidence that yesterday he had a couple of home runs. Carlos Beltran is back. He's hitting behind him. And remember, all the big sluggers have been out of this lineup most of the year. So he's been kind of the lone slugger left, and they pitched him a little differently. So I think if they had all the guys together, he would still hit some home runs.
0-2 the count. And he struck him out.
Well, that's the high fastball I was talking about. Pedro will use that, especially if he gets ahead in the count. Because what happens with Pedro is that once he gets ahead, he knows how to pitch. He knows how to finish a hitter off. There's a fastball right over the outside corner. Fastball up and in. Fastball away. That's the Pedro Martinez that you know and love, because he doesn't always go to the changeup. He has a curveball that he'll throw occasionally, but he will throw the fastball if he thinks you're looking or sitting on his changeup.
And David Wright, after an 0-for-4 first game, is 0-for-5 in this doubleheader. And a curveball hangs up and away to Carlos Beltran. Beltran was having a fabulous early part of the season, but then missed 70 games after sustaining a deep bruise on his right knee. Just back this week.
And when you take all the sluggers out of this lineup, it is definitely not a good lineup, meaning the Mets lineup.
Club really built around its offense.
Right.
And Reyes at the top of the order, the igniter, and several big sluggers in the middle.
I think you take away your switch hitting center fielder, the hits per average and power, and Beltran, and Carlos Delgado, the slugger at first base, and Jose Reyes from any team in the major leagues, and they're going to have a hard time winning. I don't care who you are. Nobody has that much depth to overcome the losses the Mets have had.
And the curveball is up and away.
And the one thing that I noticed about the Mets, you know, the games I've watched on television, even when we're not broadcasting, they have not thrown in the towel. You know, yesterday was a great example, coming back, you know, in the 9th inning, doing things like that, never giving up. And I think that's a direct reflection on the manager, Jerry Manuel, and I think that's one of the reasons that they're talking about keeping him for next year.
3-0 the count to Beltran, facing Pedro Martinez. Murphy on deck, and that is too low, so Pedro has walked Beltran. 2 men on, 2 men out, and Murphy coming up.
And that's not surprising to me, because he doesn't want to throw a fastball to Beltran in the fastball situation.
Last year, the 4 of them, Wright hit over 300, drove in 124. Reyes, who was one of the great leadoff men of the game, Beltran 112 RBIs, Delgado 115, and only Wright has been in there most of this year. Even Wright got beamed about 3 weeks ago against San Francisco by Matt Cain, and he had to miss some time. The rest of them have hardly played at all this year. changeup in there for a strike to Murphy. Murphy hitting .258, 9 home runs, 55 batted in.
Well, Murphy was the guy that they thought was going to really solidify this lineup with everybody else being healthy. He was going to be the left-handed bat down in the order, and he was going to play left field. That has not worked out. He's now our first baseman.
And he has been swinging a pretty good bat in the second half of the season. His batting average has gone up a little bit. The power numbers and production not really there. But the New York Mets have not given up on him. They 30-plus doubles this year. They really think he's part of the solution. Position depends upon what they do with the roster as they move forward.
0-2 the count. Look at him, high and tight, 90 miles an hour with that fastball.
Well, that was the one that he wanted to get him to chase. He didn't want to throw it that far inside. You could see Ruiz stand up, and that was telling you that he wanted him to throw the high fastball.
Castillo, who led off the inning with a single, is at second. Beltran, who walked, is at first. There's Castillo, goes Beltran. A ball and 2 strikes to Daniel Murphy. Fernando Tatis on deck. Too far in. Another fastball, that one at 91. And the count goes to 2-2.
But I think that was a show-me fastball as well. I think he figures with this young hitter, he's better off throwing him a changeup. You can see Ruiz jump way inside. It was farther inside than he wanted. But I don't think Pedro wants a young hitter to hit a fastball.
So now 2 balls, 2 strikes. 2 on, 2 out. Stayed with hard stuff, but down and in. He's missed with 3 straight fastballs, and it's a full count.
Well, that surprised me.
Yeah, that surprised me too, but I'll be surprised if he sees a fastball in 3-2. I think the changeup is his put-away pitch. That's what was effective against the Nationals last week, and Pedro has the confidence in that changeup to throw it on a 3-2 count with the runners moving.
He also knows there's a right-handed hitter on deck, and he's given up 5 home runs this year to left-handed.
The runners take off. Curveball struck him out swinging. Two men stranded for the Mets. No score. The Phillies, Rollins, Victorino, Utley coming up. Here's the last of the first inning. And it will be Rollins to lead off. And let's take a look at the Phillies batting order presented by Taco Bell. Rollins at shortstop. Shane Victorino in center field. Chase Utley at second. Howard at first, the big slugger. Ibanez at left. And he started hitting the long ball again after a long drought. Jason Worth, 33 home runs, right field. Pedro Feliz at third. Carlos Ruiz, the catcher. And Pedro Martinez, the pitcher, batting ninth. against Tim Redding, the veteran right-hander.
Well, Tim Redding started a little bit this year, went to the bullpen, but has come back into the starting rotation over his last 4 starts. He's been much more effective than in his career against the Philadelphia Phillies. 5-3, 3.13 ERA in 13 games started. Not a big strikeout guy. Looks to pitch to contact.
And ball 1 to Jimmy Rollins. I beg your pardon, strike 1. Jimmy Rollins was jumping away. I just went with Jimmy. Jimmy, you okay? Did you get hit? Now that is ball 1. 1 ball and 1 strike. Yeah, Redding has done extremely well there. You have to really comb through the numbers to find anybody currently with the Phillies who's ever had any success against Redding. Fastball running off the outside.
Jimmy Rollins hitting 158, 6 for 38 in his career against Tim Redding. But Jimmy Rollins leading off for the Phillies this year. It has been a real struggle for him, and you see where he ranks for leadoff hitters. 45 qualifying players, 38th in batting average. On base percentage hasn't been there. Obviously, he does hit for some power, so the power numbers move him up in the rankings, but ranked 41st in on-base percentage among the leadoff hitters qualifying. So, you know, we talk about the power for this team, but Charlie Manuel says Jimmy Rollins, Shane Victorino are the keys to their offense.
The batting average holds steady, but that on-base average went up a little bit there. Rollins gets the walk to start off the inning. Not a bad move for Rollins to coax a walk out of Redding, since he's never been able to get a base hit against him to speak of. Redding, 13 career starts against the Phillies with a 3.13 earned run average against them and a 207 batting average against him. So here is Victorino. He had a 2-run homer in game 1. And there's ball 1. In fact, Victorino also had a single. So a 2-hit game for him. And that's, I think, eagerly anticipated and awaited by Victorino, because he's not been getting hits here lately. He's been in a drought.
Well, he had dropped well below 300, and he's had a couple of good days to get back up there. Charlie says that, you know, he loves to hit Victorino second, you know, against right-handed pitching, but he doesn't really take advantage of that hole on the right side as well as he should. He said occasionally they'll get the ball inside and he'll pull it in the hole, but he wants him to learn to be able to pull that outside pitch and ground it to the right side, and it'll go through the hole, and you can go first and third very easily. With the speed of Rollins, you always want somebody hitting second that can hit the hole on the right side, because it's automatic first and third.
The Phillies hitting 258 as a team, but they've hit 204 home runs, more than any other National League team. There's a bunt, but it goes foul. And the count 1 ball, 1 strike. So what was up with that?
See, that I don't understand that. If you're going to try to move him over, let him steal. Jimmy Rollins, 77.8%, you know, steal at 78%, which is good. Let him go ahead and steal. You're in the first inning of a nothing ball game. Let him steal second. Then if you want to bunt him to third, go ahead. But you should not have to bunt Jimmy Rollins to second base in the first inning.
28 steals and caught 8 times, diving safely back to the bag.
I think of all of the things you could do to advance Jimmy Rollins, from a stolen base to a hit and run to a sacrifice bunt. Sacrifice bunt's the last of the things you choose of the options.
Well, he wasn't really. He was trying to beat it out for a base hit, but it's the same thing. He's going to bunt it. The third baseman's in. David Wright's going to make the play, but that's just not. To me, that's not a smart play in the first inning.
Rollins started to go, then came back, and there's a flare into left field, a base hit.
No, John, come on.
You got this flare going.
Now, Victorino hit a home run earlier today, so I guess that it would be a flare for Shane Victorino, but that's good contact hitting, going with where the ball is pitched, and gets the ball out over the plate here, Joe. It just goes the other way.
Well, that's what Charlie's talking about, though. If he gets that same single to right field, then with Jimmy Rollins on third base, the ball's away from him, and he slaps it to left field, as John said, a flare. But usually, if a second place hitter can take that pitch and just pull it to the right side,
slap
he thinks
it,
that he's going to be better at that, in the future.
Slap it, and you get a flare.
Yeah.
You explode on it,
and
you get a big fly.
I got you.
So 2 men on. They've set it up nicely. This is the way it's designed in the playbook for the Phillies. Those first two guys get on base, and then the big sluggers come up, and there's a called strike to Chase Utley, hitting .295, 31 homers, 88 batted in.
And one of the things that happened when they were in that losing streak, especially in Houston, was all of a sudden Utley didn't have 30 home runs yet. Neither did Wirtz. Neither did Ibanez. So they were all trying to get to 30 home runs, and that's what Charlie saw. He saw that they were overswinging, trying to, even with runners on third base, they're trying to hit a 2-run homer instead of getting the runner in. And that's why he had the meeting to let him know he didn't appreciate what was happening.
The curveball from Redding is too low, and he's in a lot of trouble here early on.
We talked to Charlie Manuel before the first game today, and he talked about, look, our team batting average is .258. He said we have the talent on this roster to be a .270 to .280 team hitting and still take our walks and still hit our home runs. So he thinks that they're not living up to their potential offensively, particularly putting the ball in play and getting base hits.
Rollins at second, Victorino at first, and that curveball in at the knees for a called strike, and it's 1-2. The Phillies, before the All-Star break and after the break, had gone 15-2. They were red hot. Everything was cooking, and the record stood at 58-40. They had scored 5.5 runs per game for the season, but since then only 23-20, 4.2 runs per game, and worse yet, hitting only .217 in those clutch at bats. Runners in scoring position. There's one out there right now. Rollins at second, which we call scoring position, where a base hit to the outfield should, more often than not, get him across the plate. 1 ball, 2 strikes to Chase Utley. But Utley's another one of the guys who's been struggling lately. He hit a foul ball off his right foot 9 days ago in Houston. Foot got swollen. They actually gave an x-ray on it. He was okay, but he had not hit well since then. The ball is foul and back out of play. Utley was 0 for 2 with a couple of walks in game 1 today.
So let me ask you this, hitting with runners in scoring position. My Mets teams back in the day, we struggled hitting with runners in scoring position. But the more of an issue you make of it, the more guys start to try too hard. How do you manage it without making it too much of an issue?
Well, I understand you're exactly right about the more you make an issue of it. But when you have veteran players, Utley, Rollins, Howard, these guys are not rookies. They know what they're supposed to do. I think it's more of focus.
Slider is low for a ball.
And that's what Charlie felt like. That's why he had the meeting. It's more focusing in on driving in the run from second base instead of trying to drive in all three, yourself included. He felt like they were trying to hit home runs when they got runners in scoring position. And that's what we're talking about. It's the focus. You have to have a different focus with runners in scoring position.
But is that focus? A lot of times guys try too hard. They become a little aggressive.
Yeah.
But how do you keep yourself calm? Do you talk to yourself in the box?
Well, I think you talk amongst yourselves on the bench. You guys talk, and somebody will say, look, you might say to a guy, looks like you're squeezing that bat up there instead of, just holding it. So there are a lot of different ways that you talk about it. I think you talk about it amongst yourselves more than anything else.
2 men on, nobody out. 2 very fast runners on the bases, Rollins and Victorino. Left center field, hit well, way back there, and off the top of the wall. Rollins got a late break. They're making a play on him, but he scores. However, Victorino had to stop at second. Victorino almost passed him on the base pass, and it's only a single for Utley. There was a breakdown in the base pass. Rollins did not go halfway. He was heading back to the bag. He thought the left fielder Tatis might catch that ball, apparently.
Well, it's not a good play by Rollins. What happens is you only tag up if the guy's going to get under the ball. You don't tag up, you go halfway otherwise. If he's halfway, Victorino would have definitely been able to even get to third and maybe score. But, I mean, he's not under the ball ever, so you're not supposed to be at second base tagging up. This ball hits high off the wall. I mean, almost a home run. And Rollins was still back there tagging up. You do not do that unless the guy's standing under it.
And there's ball 1 to Brian Howard outside. It's just a single and an RBI off the left center field wall for Chase Utley. His 89th run batted in of the year.
Unless you're sure that guy in the outfield is going to catch the ball, you shouldn't be at second base.
The high curveball misses.
Whoa! I beg your pardon. In there for a called strike.
The second high pitch that we've seen called for a strike today. Todd Tishner behind the plate, giving the high strike call to the pitcher today.
Ryan Howard, 38 homers, 118 runs batted in. And that is up and away with a slider. The count goes to 2-1. 2 weeks ago when we were here for the Phillies and the Braves, Ryan Howard was on a tear and had been for a while. But he, like his teammates, has cooled off considerably in the last couple of weeks.
Well, it's interesting we pointed out at that time how well he hits against the Braves.
1-0 Phillies, 2 men on, nobody out. Fastball. That is a called strike 2.
But then the Giants came in and Mexico, Sanchez, they all pitched well while they were here.
Brad Penny made his Giants debut.
So the Giants pitching staff could put any team into a slump. Charlie Manuel says that's not what happened. But it can happen because that they have some kind of starting rotation.
Phillies got 3 runs in the 3 games that the Giants were here. And then they won 2 out of the 3 games. Despite that, the high fastball out of the zone, taken by Howard. It's a full count. Still nobody out in the inning.
This is something I talked to Charlie about too. Do you run in this situation? You know, Howard, of course, strikes out a lot. And I don't ever like to run with the runner at first and second, nobody out anyway, because that's a triple play waiting to happen.
We've seen it happen.
Big left-handed swing at this guy too.
Yeah.
3 men on the right side of the infield. That is right into the defense and not in time to double up Victorino at second.
Good call,
if they're
Joe.
running, that's a triple play.
Yes, it is.
See, that's why you don't do it, to be honest with you, because it's not, the risk is not worth the reward. If they're running, that's a triple play.
And we actually saw a triple play earlier this year with the Phillies and Mets playing. For the Phillies, Eric Brentley, see the line drive right there. Luis Castillo, you're right, runners moving. That would have been a double play right there. Good base running as they freeze on it.
Would have been a triple play.
Triple play, yeah, triple play. They had Eric Brentley that ended the game against the Mets earlier this year on an unassisted triple play.
Same situation, 1 first and second, no outs, they were running.
Raul Ibanez now. He has started to hit the long ball, 4 homers in his last 7 games. 2 men on, only 1 man out in the inning. A run is in for the Phillies. Ibanez standing in with 31 homers, 86 runs batted in for the year. And could catch up to that slider or cutter on the inside. It's 0-2. Ibanez was having a fabulous season in the first half and then suffered a groin strain in mid-June that put him on the shelf. He had 59 RBIs in 62 games up to that point. Since his return, however, he's not been nearly as good. Made the All-Star team based on that first half. He was hitting .312. And it's been a real struggle for the 37-year-old Ibanez since, hitting only .240. 9 homers, 27 batted in 53 games since then. And that foul will go out of play. Jason Worth, another big home run hitter, is on deck for the Phillies. Now, if Jimmy Rollins had not had that snafu on the base pass, at the very worst, that would have been a double for Utley. That ball off the left center field wall with Victorino at third and Utley at second. I say at the worst, it's possible Victorino with a jump he had, he might have scored 2. He was a step behind Rollins where Rollins was, but he had to stop or pass Rollins on the base pass. If he passed him, he would have been out.
Not only that, they may not have even pitched to Ryan Howard. Run to the second and third. Nobody out.
Or just a runner at second and 2 runs home. So a lot of things changed right there. 1 ball and 2 strikes. And he slaps at it and fouls it off the left field, but not a flare. But he was just trying to slap at it, just trying to fight it off with 2 strikes.
That was surprising to me because it was an off-speed pitch, and he still was waiting too long, and he was still late on it.
I asked Charlie Manuel about what's going on with Ibanez. He says his timing just has not been right since he's come back off the disabled list. And he was so locked in, driving everything, and now he's come back and behind a lot of pitches, flipping at the ball and fighting them off instead of driving the pitches out of the ballpark.
The ball and 2 strikes. The high fastball into center field, very high in the air. Beltran in shallow center.
That was a much better swing there, at least getting to the ball. But the other swings, he's just late. And we talked about timing so often now. And we're going to continue to talk about that. If he doesn't recognize the ball quickly out of a guy's hand, then he's going to be late. And that's what he was in those couple of swings that we saw.
So 2 down, and here is Jason Worth. Worth with 33 homers, 84 batted in at .267 average for the year, 890 ops. 890, that's pretty good for an ops. The combination of slugging percentage and on base percentage added together, so kind of a shorthand for production. The Phillies have 3 guys over 900. Worth's only 4th in the club at 890, and he would be leading most ball clubs with that kind of a figure.
Well, I've said it before, and I think he's one of the most underrated players because he's a winning player. He does so many things to help your team win, other than just hit.
A mighty cut on that high fastball. Came up empty. He's quickly behind in the count 0-2. Well, one thing he does, you mentioned only 267 batting average, but he elevates that a little bit. In the clutch, he's hitting 291 with runners in scoring position.
What I've noticed about him is that he will look for pitches. I don't say yes, but he looks for pitches.
Fastball. And that one he took off the outside. 1-2.
And if he gets that pitch that he wants, he will drive it. And you mentioned that he hit a home run against Lincecum, a little slider up or something. He was looking for it. And I mean, when he looks for it and he gets what he's looking for, he hammers.
In Pedro's game against Lincecum, Worth hit one into the upper deck and must have been halfway up into that upper deck. It was spectacular. And he tries that high fastball again. He got him to swing and miss at it for strike 2, but he has missed with it twice since then. He hit that ball all the way up into that second deck. Now, people kind of deride this ballpark as being too small home run hitters playground, but you hit one halfway into that upper deck.
That's a home run anywhere.
And then some. It's a tape measure home run anywhere. 2-2 the count. Victorino at second. Buckley at first. And the slide piece fouled out of play.
No, I agree with you, Joe. He is such an underrated player because he can steal a base. He can hit the ball out of the ballpark. He can hit with runners in scoring position. He's an outstanding defender, running the balls down in the gap, has a strong throwing arm. He does a lot of different things. He can pound some left-handed pitching, and having that kind of guy in the lineup has real value, particularly behind the left-handed bats they have stacked in the middle of this order.
2 on, 2 out. Phillies on deck. Inside with the fastball. Full countdown. The 32nd pitch thrown in this very high-stress first inning for Tim Reddy, but he's only allowed the 1 run. And you wouldn't have thought that he might get by with just 1 run the way the inning started. Rollins walked, Victorino singled, Utley hit one off the left center field wall. They had a run home just like that, but now 2 down. The runners go. And he curves him for strike 3 swinging. Took one out of Pedro's playbook there. We go to the second inning. Tatis coming up against Pedro. 1-0 Phillies. Sunday Night Baseball from Philadelphia. And the world champion Phillies with a 1-run lead, although it looked like there would be much more than that the way that first inning started. The hunt for October continues on ESPN Wednesday with a doubleheader. First at 7 Eastern. It'll be the Angels and the Boston Red Sox from Fenway Park, and they might face each other in the division series right out of the box in October. Then at 10 Eastern, National League West rivals. Last chance perhaps for the Giants to get themselves back into contention in the wild card division against the Colorado Rockies. Their final matchup with the Rockies, Matt Cain scheduled to go for the Giants against Colorado. That'll be Wednesday at 10 Eastern from San Francisco. Wednesday Night Baseball presented by Smirnoff Ice on ESPN. I'm John Miller with Joe Morgan and Steve Phillips, your Sunday night telecasters, our 20th season of Sunday Night Baseball. And Pedro spins one in there for a called strike to Fernando Tatis. Tatis, a right-handed hitter, 275 average, 7 homers, 40 batted in. Schneider and Anderson Hernandez will follow. Curveball, and that froze him.
That was a beauty right there. The first one, you said it right. He just was a spinner that got in there. But Tatis has been hot his last 23 games, hitting .380. He had 4 hits in yesterday's ball game, so he has been swinging the bat well at 275. Is on the rise.
Just a bit outside, and Ruiz thought they had him.
Pedro thought they had him. Pedro kind of walked off a little bit. Pedro just kind of turned, walked. He thought that was strike 3. Fastball toward the outside corner. Well, right there on the edge, according to K-Zone.
1-2, and a little bit too high. So a very narrow strike zone, although.
Well, he's giving you some height, though.
As they say, he's giving you some stuff up north.
Yeah, all right.
The north and south has been pretty nice if you're a pitcher, but east and west a little bit narrow. That's a changeup, strike 3 call. Third strikeout for Pedro. Let's go to the studio now. Ryan Burr with a Sports Center right now. Thanks, Ryan. Back here in Philly, the Phils with a 1-0 lead over the Mets. Final meeting of the year between these two rivals, and there's a base hit to right field for Schneider. Schneider, who may be in his final days as a Met, he has had a very poor season between some injury problems and just a lack of production. He came into this game hitting only .195.
Let's take a look at the last pitch to Tatis. The ball starts outside and comes back. Look at that. It comes right back over the outside edge. Pedro. You can see the rotation brings it back. Kind of a sidearm 3/4 changeup.
See them looking for Fernando Tatis there. I think when he went to the wall on that ball driven to the wall by Utley, I think he jammed his fingers out there, and they're checking out his hand. Tough to swing the bat when your hand's hurt.
Anderson Hernandez fouls one away.
You see right there Ray Ramirez, the trainer for the Mets, talking about how when he went to the wall he must have bent those fingers back. And I wonder if Tatis will stay in this game.
That's interesting because he's got a glove on that hand.
Right. You see he goes to the wall right there, and as the hand goes to the wall and he slams his glove into the wall. Whether it's the throwing hand or the glove hand, you're right. The trainer was showing that it would be the left hand, the glove hand. But he could have actually injured both the way he went into that with the thumb.
I think it was his left hand, but.
Change up over the head of Howard down the right field line. Base hit for Anderson Hernandez. Schneider will go around to third as Worth gets it back in. And the Mets with another threat against Pedro, but the pitcher, Redding, is coming up next.
That's smart hitting as far as I'm concerned, but you're a left-handed hitter with a runner at first base. They throw you anything off speed, you should hit it because you're going to pull it, and there's a big hole over there. See, that's a changeup, and he just rips it to right field. all this area in here. And there's the base hit because there's a big hole over there. See, if Ryan Howard's playing back, he probably could catch that ball. So you got to take advantage of it when you have a runner at first and they're holding him on.
Now the Phillies with the pitcher up, runners at first and third. The middle infielders come in halfway. Howard on the bag at first with Hernandez, and over third, Phillies is rather shallow.
Well, it's interesting, John, that Jimmy Rollins is playing back. Now Utley's starting to move back. They were halfway. I think with a pitcher up, he probably should play halfway because he's not going to hit it hard enough normally to get it through the infield. Now they're playing strictly for a double play.
This is a safety, but not any kind of a squeeze at all. It's just a sacrifice bunt to get Hernandez over to second. Schneider never took a step away from third base. And Redding executes, moves that runner up. Why would you do that in the first pitch?
I'm not a manager. I was wondering right there why you would do that as well. But, you know, obviously Jerry wanted to stay out of the double play. He did not want Redding to hit a ground ball and hit him to a double play. Now you do have your best hitter average-wise, you know, along with David Wright, one of the 300 hitters on your team, coming to bat with runners in second and third. So now a single to the outfield could score 2 runs.
The Mets have not hit home runs, but they have hit well as a team with runners in scoring position, especially Castillo. He's hitting .330 in these clutch at bats. He drops down a bunt, and it's foul. And that was news to Schneider, because had that been a fair ball, Schneider would have been still standing at third base. He did not move a step.
Well, one of the problems the Mets have hit for a good average so far this year. They've actually hit with runners in scoring position, but they're middle of the pack in runs scored. And part of it is a guy like Luis Castillo doesn't drive the ball. You can play him shallow in the outfield, and a base hit to the outfield, it's awfully hard to score from second base. You see them playing shallow, good arms in the outfield for the Phillies.
Slices at that one and fouls it into the crowd off to the left, and it's 0-2.
The only thing they have going for them is 2 outs, and they're going to go on contact. So I still think that Hernandez could score from second, but you're right. In other situations, without less than 2 outs, you have to wait, and he probably wouldn't be able to score.
Very shallow all around the outfield right here.
That hit him. Pedro trying to get a little extra in that fastball again.
Got him on the elbow, apparently.
And he is in serious pain. Right near the right elbow, or maybe on the elbow. Castillo in just terrible pain.
He tried to turn to get out of the way of it, but just couldn't get enough of his body turned out of the way and left the arm exposed. Really got hit.
You know, we've talked about this a lot. You know, the technique that hitters use to get out of the way. And we talked about, you know, David Wright getting hit in the head, and a lot of guys getting hit in the head lately because of the way that they just turn away and not move away. And that's what happens here. And let's watch. See, he doesn't try to get out of the way. He just kind of turns in. He doesn't move back.
Really looked like it might get him up in the upper back area, but couldn't get out of the way. Hits the elbow, and it's been par for the course for the Mets this year. Injuries have been the name of the game for their entire season so far this year.
You see a guy doing that, he's in tremendous pain.
We'll talk about Carlos Beltran back in the lineup. And Jose Reyes, who's still laid up with the hamstring injury, had a calf injury as well. Carlos Delgado, the hip. And look at the days on the disabled list for the New York Mets this year. That's not a category. You want to have a team that leads in categories. This is not one of them. There's no team in baseball that could overcome the amount of time on the DL. We've talked about all the position player injuries for the Mets. Johan Santana now out for the rest of the year with surgery. John Maine, who pitched the early game today, missed a substantial period of time with shoulder problems. Oliver Perez with knee problems.
And they've had a lot of different kind of injuries. Alex Cora, right and left thumb. Carlos Delgado had the hip problem. And then had an oblique problem. I mean, they've had just all kind of different things happen to them. Knee problems, you know, for Perez. Knee problems for Beltran.
So now with the bases loaded, there is ball one to Corey Sullivan. Sullivan flied out to shallow center his first time. Pedro gets a slider over the outside for a called strike, and it's 1-1. Pedro, as you recall, the first inning had a couple of quick strikes on Murphy and kept trying to power a high fastball by him and missed with 3 in a row to go to 3-2. Finally struck him out with a slow curveball. Got 2 strikes at Castillo and trying to run that fastball inside at 91 miles an hour and hit him.
Now that bunt by Tim Redding doesn't look so bad, does it?
Redding got Hernandez over to second base. With his bunt, the runner was already at third. Now there's a pop-up. Shallow left.
Now it looks bad again.
Very bad. 5 base runners allowed by Pedro in 2 innings, but nary a one of them has scored. Pedro Phillies coming up, 1-0 Phils. By Taco Bell. Citizens Bank Park in Philadelphia. The Phillies with a 1-0 lead over the Mets as we go to the last half of the second inning. ESPN celebrated its 30th anniversary this past Monday, and Bill Rasmussen was invited by the Phillies to throw out the first pitch of the game to the Philly Fanatic before tonight's ball game. Rasmussen, along with his son Scott, devised the idea for a 24-hour sports network. September the 7th, 1979, it was launched, and ESPN, ubiquitous now. Rasmussen left ESPN about a year later, 1980, but he had hired the likes of Jim Simpson, Chris Berman, Bob Lee, Greg Gumbel, Tom Mees, and many of those names that you'll remember from the earliest days of ESPN, and many of whom are still with ESPN all these many years later and looking never better.
I think the idea is catching on.
Here's Pedro Feliz, and a strike from Redding. The count is 2-1. Redding could use a quick inning here. He threw 33 pitches in the first inning. Fernando Tatis out of the game. We saw that he was with the Mets trainer, and apparently has suffered a sprained left index finger, so it was his glove hand. Jeremy Reed has gone into left field in his place. Left center field, a liner way back there, one hop against the wall. Beltran plays the carom, a stand-up double for Feliz.
And that's one of those situations where the umpire actually got Redding in trouble. There was a pitch. The second pitch looked like it was knee high, and he didn't give him the low pitch because he's calling the high pitch. Now he has to give in, and he gives him a fastball pretty much in the middle of the plate, and he lines it in the left center field because it's 3 balls, 1 strike. He didn't want to walk him instead of the count being 2-2.
Well, there's not giving a guy a few inches off the plate.
Right.
But then there's not giving him a pitch that actually is on the outside part of the plate. That's not good. This one is way outside. Let me just say, I agree with that call.
That one right there?
Yeah. Excellent. One ball and no strikes to Ruiz. With a runner at second, nobody out. The pitcher, Pedro Martinez, on deck, and Ruiz tried to shoot that one to the right side as slider, and he fouled it off to the right.
The rest of the Phillies lineup struggling a little bit. Carlos Ruiz is starting to put together some quality at bats. Now, I actually think it's not the worst news for the Phillies that they hit a little bit of a slump at the timing that they did. They're going to come out of it offensively, and I think they've got a chance to come out of it at just the right time with momentum heading into October.
In the dirt.
Normally I would agree with you, but the problem is with hitting, you never know what's going to happen. I mean, and we've seen them get really hot after the All-Star break. When we've seen them go very cold, then they get hot again. And my point is, they may get hot for the next 5 or 10 days and then go cold
off again.
You never know what's going to happen come October, and that's what makes it such an interesting month.
And I think that's why Charlie Manuel says that Shane Victorino and Jimmy Rollins are the key.
Right.
Because they're the manufacturing guys. You know, if the sluggers aren't going to hit it out of the ballpark, if they're not going to pick up those hits, you need as many opportunities as you can. And that's where Jimmy Rollins and Shane Victorino getting on base in front of Chase Utley, in front of Ryan Howard, Raul Ibanez, and Jason Worth is the difference. It also gets those guys better pitches to hit because of the threat to score runs and steal bases.
I think the biggest problem they have is Jimmy Rollins, his on-base percentage. Look, Victorino was hitting close to 300 all year. He's hitting, around 300. But Jimmy Rollins is not getting on base enough. I mean, his on-base percentage is just not high enough. And that's where they're having problems right now. Anytime you're under 3.
This is a slow hit ball to third. That's not going to move the runner over. And David Wright throws out Ruiz, so they wasted out there for Ruiz. Phillies holding at second with 1 out.
Now, Joe, you were talking earlier about conversations of players in the dugout. We just saw, the veterans for this Phillies team having one of those conversations.
That's exactly what happens. I mean, the veteran guys will talk. A lot of times when you have a very young team, they don't know what to talk about. The veteran players that have been through these situations, kind of help each other. And as you're saying, we saw Victorino, he was doing most of the talking, but basically that he's the one that talks the most.
Yeah, he does do that a lot. When there's a conversation, he tends to be the one talking the most.
But it's good to see guys talking because that's what the game's all about. That's how you pass along something that maybe you learned when you were up at bat against Redding the first time.
Pedro fouling one back behind the plate. Schneider starts back, but it's in amongst the spectators. 1 ball and 1 strike. Pedro Martinez, who was a one-time Montreal Expo, as was the Mets catcher Schneider. And both who sort of came of age with a franchise that no longer exists. That franchise now is the Washington Nationals. Fastball out of play off to the right. I suppose that's good news for the Dodgers, who traded away Pedro in a trade. I'm sure for anybody with the Dodgers, it still hurts to talk about it.
I think at that time the thought was that he wasn't going to have the stamina to last as a starting pitcher. He was
very small,
right? Small guy, not a lot of strength.
Now Feliz moves up as Pedro is thrown out by Anderson Hernandez. 2 down, runner at third. Pedro, 200+ wins in his career, more than 3,000 strikeouts, an earned run average below 3. The big trade, Walter Johnson was the guy who did that. Tom Seaver, your old teammate Joe, 311 wins in the Hall of Fame. Bob Gibson, 251 victories in the Hall of Fame.
I mean,
So the other guys who've done that in the Hall of Fame. And Pedro's ERA is right there with him. And he was in a great hitter's era as Rollins fouls one back out of play.
And spent a lot of time in the American League with the DH, whereas Seaver and Gibson were in the National League where they got to pitch to each other, pitch to the pitcher. So you're right. He was in a hitter's era, and I think that makes a big difference.
The 218 wins, not the type of numbers we talk about for Hall of Famers, but his dominance over a multi-year period.
Rollins into left field, and Jeremy Reed with plenty of room, and that's the inning. So a leadoff double for Phillies, and the problems with runners in scoring position, lack of production, continue for the Phillies. David Wright will be coming up, then Beltran.
ESPN Sunday Night Baseball, presented by Taco Bell. Brought to you by Chevy, honoring the spirit of community by supporting the 2009 Roberto Clemente Award. And Kevin Woodstains, our performance is legendary.
Big crowd here at Citizens Bank Park as usual. Here's David Wright against his old teammate Pedro Martinez. Not that Pedro's old, just mean that they used to be. But this tonight marks the first time that Wright has ever faced Pedro Martinez. He struck out his first time. And there's a called strike on the outside corner. 1 ball, 1 strike. I love the way Ruiz is able to get down and give that low target.
Reminds you of Tony Pena. Remember Tony?
Yeah, just like
down there.
Just like Pena. Pena, you get down more than anybody.
Right.
Give that low target for a pitcher. 2-1 the count to David Wright. He struck out his first time, as we said. Carlos Beltran on deck. Just a little bit low on the outside.
Well, you look at that pitch right there. That's outstanding command and control. You see him looking to throw the fastball on the outside corner, then goes to the slider, starting it on the corner, trying to break it off the plate to get right to chase.
Wow. Came right after him. The high fastball that had some almost exploded up there up in the zone.
Well, remember the first time up, he threw a fastball away, fastball up and in, and then another fastball away. Well, he was away with those first couple of pitches, so he goes back inside again with the high fastball.
Stays with the hard stuff, and it's fouled off the right field line.
Well, I think he saw David Wright hit a home run off Matson last night off of a changeup, to win the ball game. And so I think he feels that maybe the new approach that David Wright has going the other way he's more susceptible to the fastball than he will be to the changeup, unless he throws the changeup out of the zone.
And the fastball put him away. 91 miles an hour, and Wright has faced Pedro twice and struck out both times.
And you can see what his purpose is with Wright. He's throwing fastball, 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 then going upstairs. And he got him out. He struck him out with a fastball up last time. He strikes him out with another fastball. It's not up enough, but it's in.
Good riding movement on that fastball. Even ball up and in. You see the tailing action.
As Beltran pops one foul and out of play off the third base side.
You know, it's interesting because the Mets had Pedro Martinez last year. What they saw was a guy who had to throw off-speed pitches because he couldn't throw his fastball. He was 84, 85 miles per hour. The fastball was very hittable. He couldn't really locate it or command it. So Pedro became a breaking ball and change-up pitcher last year. But what they're seeing tonight is the fastball has come back at least a couple of miles per hour from what they saw a year ago for the most part. And it's made him much more effective.
Ryan Howard. And he makes the play unassisted. Looked to me like he was waving off Pedro, and then finally made a headlong dive to beat Beltran to the bag.
Now, Pedro Martinez, we talk about the use of all of the different pitches, but it started with the fastball, and he's had the two-seam fastball working with the tailing action, sinking the ball down to the zone. Then the four-seamer with the velocity to hit a spot on the corner. Then the changeup, sinking it away, again hitting his spot. The outstanding curveball. And then the cutter, the slider, breaking it in. Tatis not able to lock in on it. A lot of different velocities, a lot of different movement on the assortment of pitches.
And a big curveball for a swinging strike to Daniel Murphy. The K-Zone package there, sponsored by Ford. Murphy struck out to end the first inning. Fastball popped up. That's a big league pop-up. Shallow left. Jimmy Rollins. And the inning is over. And a fairly quick inning for Pedro Martinez. We go to the last half of the third. Victorino, Utley, and Ryan Howard. Big hitters coming up. That's 1-0. Joe, you were talking about hitting philosophy earlier, and our old friend, the hitman, Mike Easler, hitting instructor, he had a very catchy phrase that he used.
Well, John, over the years, I've talked to Ted Williams about hitting. I've talked to, Willie Mays. I've talked to Rod Carew. And they all kind of give you a little bit of one thing about how to approach. Well, I think Mike Easler's little poems are see it, read it, and explode. I think that sums up what I was told by all those three great hitters. But he does it in a very compact, short, sentence there. And when you say see it, that means find the ball out of the pitcher's hand as quickly as possible. Read it. That means you read the speed of the pitch or the break. And then you explode on the pitch. That tells you to let it go instead of just trying to make contact. You just have to go ahead and explode on it rather than just trying to hit a line drive back through the middle or something. But see it, recognize it, read the spin, and then explode. I mean, I think that's a great hitting lesson for young people, that are trying to learn how to hit, because hitting is very difficult to do.
Well, would you say that was your philosophy as a hitter?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, my philosophy was derived from talking to all those other guys and trying to pick their brains and come up with, different things. But yes, that would be, my philosophy. I told you I had a poem that was a little different. His was a lot shorter and more to the point.
I like your poem, though.
That's a good poem.
Yeah. Well, I've used it on the air before, so.
I never heard it.
Yeah.
You never used it with me.
All right. See the ball before you stride. let it go if it's outside. If it's at a curve and should break down, jack up and hit it downtown. Now, that's exactly what he said, only he said it better than what I did. The point is, you see the ball, you got to recognize the ball first. You see the ball see it out of his hand. And when I say see it, we all think we see the ball. Sometimes you're watching the ball rather than seeing it. And just think about that. If you're sitting and watching television, sometimes you have to say, what just happened? Because you're really not seeing it, you're watching it. And a lot of times you're watching the ball come out of the pitcher's hand rather than seeing it and trying to recognize what it is. A lot of guys do not recognize spin, therefore they don't recognize the speed, and that's what gets them in trouble.
There are none so blind as those who do not see or will not see.
Will not see.
And out is Shane Victorino, who hit a single his first time. Redding throws him out. Chase Utley coming up. Ryan Howard behind him. The power coming up now for the Phillies. But that poem of yours, now see it, read it, explode, from Mike Kiesler, I could get that as a rookie. Your poem, it could be like my third or fourth year before it finally would kick in.
Well, that's why I said his was a better phrase to use. His works out better for the young people.
Did Willie Mays say, see it, read it, and explode?
No, but that's what he talked about. See it and go get it. You know, a lot of different philosophies. When I talked to Ted Williams, he said he didn't really see the spin on the ball, but he could recognize the speed. And Tony Gwynn was the same way. They didn't see spin on the ball. Like I said, I talked to a lot of great hitters, and they didn't see the spin, but they recognized the speed. I don't know how you could recognize the speed without seeing the spin, but you know, that's why they were such great hitters.
Well, what about that focus, Joe? What do you do as a hitter to be able to pick up the release point so that you do see and you're not just watching?
Right. Well, that's what you have to do. You have to. Most guys, a right-hander like Tim Redding, I would be looking at his right shoulder. The ball will come out of there, and that forces you to find it right away because it comes off of his right shoulder. If you see he's hiding it, there it is, right off his right shoulder.
You watch Chase Utley there, and he really has his head turned, so he has both eyes facing the pitcher. There are a lot of guys who really kind of have their head tilted or an angle,
right,
but he's really turning his head to be able to get both eyes on the pitcher's release.
And that's the philosophy I've learned to incorporate into my thoughts. You know, because that way you don't have to worry about your dominant eye. You know, I don't want to get too complicated here, but as we know that sometimes you have a dominant eye, and if that's not looking at the pitcher, then you're going to have a problem.
Hand-eye cross dominance is key to being a good hitter.
Right.
Whatever that means. I don't know what it means.
But you heard that somewhere.
I know it's a key.
Yeah, it's a key. You know, we're talking about Ibanez, you know, earlier, you know, in our meeting, just about, you know, why he was struggling for a while. Watch, he's not recognizing his pitch. Right here, see it out of his hand, that's a changeup. You can see that that's a changeup. See the spin, and it's a changeup, and he's still late on it. So that tells you he did not see it. He was watching it, but he didn't see it. He didn't recognize that pitch.
Howard, the hitter, Ibanez out on deck. And a curveball, 0-1. Howard must just not be able to see the ball well out of the hand of Redding, because he generally is tough on just about any right-hander, but he's 3 for 27 lifetime against Tim Redding. Hard to explain.
But you know, Joe, we saw that changeup coming out of Redding's hand. As a hitter, can you see the grip of the pitch coming out?
No, I could see the spin coming off his fingers. You know, Barry Bonds used to say he could see the ball coming out of his hand, and where he released the ball from, that told him exactly what spin was going to be on the ball. I couldn't see that. I could see it once, as soon as he releases it and there's some spin on it, I could start to recognize it.
2-1 to Howard, and that is on the inside for a strike. 2-2.
Now, there are a lot of times when a pitcher throws a slider, there's that where the seams in the rotation, there's that dot that comes in.
Yeah.
When you looked at the ball coming in, did you look for some part of the ball or just the ball as a whole?
I looked for the ball, and then you could see the hole in it, and that could tell you pretty much where the middle was. And on a curveball, you just see the rotation of the ball tumbling, and the spin, the threads on the ball. I guess we should explain that. What we're talking about when we say see the spin, the red stitchings on the baseball, and you see the stitches rotating a certain way tells you where the ball's going to end up.
You know, the one thing that it shows is that vision is a very important part of hitting, and it's one of the least trained aspects, I still think, in baseball today. You know, we do a lot of batting practice. You go to the batting cage, you hit every day. But there's not as much time, I don't think, spent on vision training as there should be to improve a hitter.
It's starting to improve, though.
Strike 3. Howard chasing that high fastball. And three tough Phillies hitters set down in order by Redding. Both Utley and Howard striking out. On to the fourth inning. Pedro back to the hill with a 1-0 lead. Baseball presented by Taco Bell. We're heading into the fourth inning now. Pedro Martinez, who retired the Mets' 3-4-5 hitters, Wright, Beltran, and Murphy on 10 pitches. In the third, back to work here with a curveball to Jeremy Reed, who is up for the first time in this game. Strike one call. Reed replaced Fernando Tatis, who sprained his left index finger, chasing a ball that was hit to the wall by Chase Utley back in the first inning. You know, Utley ended up getting an RBI single on the ball, and Tatis ended up having to leave the game.
Watching Pedro, John, you know, that curveball, you can't see it, the rotation. He kind of slings it. That's why right there, he slings the curveball, so it's hard to pick up the rotation on it. And that's why we've seen guys just take it, you know, more, you know, he kind of slings it. See, look at it. It comes out of the left field a little bit.
And the high fastball taken, and no swing, says Rob Drake, the third base umpire, on appeal.
What we're seeing him do, though, is he's actually started the last two left-handed hitters off with curveballs. And then what he does when he gets two strikes, he throws the high fastball off the same plane where the curveball starts.
Fastball, put him away.
Well, I think he's starting to feel better out there. I know we talked about trying to limit his pitches, John, but I think he's actually starting to feel better. The movement on his fastball now seems to be more than it was before. He's got more movement right now than he had before. Look at that fastball run in on David Wright. And there you can see, look at, I mean, you can't read it as well. That's where we talk about reading it. You got to see that the ball is rotating that way and it's going to move that way. And I think he's actually throwing better right now than he was at the beginning of the ball game.
He certainly has shown a tendency to get better as his starts have gone along.
In a significant way. 370 batting average in the first inning. After that, I think 216 the rest of the game.
Schneider singled against him in the second inning. So he's 1 for 1. And by the way, this thing you're talking about, Pedro, the pitch count and whatnot being a concern.
Yeah.
That was Steve.
Okay.
I was not concerned about
it. Yeah, well, he threw 119 pitches last time out. So.
Yeah. 37 years old, and I think the question was, what kind of condition was he in, and what was his stamina going to be?
But on the other hand, here it is, mid-September, and this is only his 7th start.
Right.
That is out number 2. Howard takes it. 2 down and nobody on. Week 1 of the 40th season of Monday Night Football begins tomorrow night on ESPN with a doubleheader. First at 7 Eastern. The Buffalo Bills and the New England Patriots. Then at 10:15 Eastern, the San Diego Chargers and the Oakland Raiders.
I will be at the Raiders game tomorrow night.
Coverage begins with Monday Night Countdown, served by Applebee's at 5 Eastern tomorrow on ESPN.
You working tomorrow?
I have the Giants and the Rockies tomorrow in the wild card race with Tim Lincecum on the hill.
No, but wait.
Too bad. You could go to the Raider game.
But do you get dressed up for the Raiders games like all those costumes that those guys do there? No, you don't do that.
Wait a minute, I wear black.
Do you?
But I don't wear the costume.
No.
I just
You don't paint your
wear
face?
a little. No, I don't do any of that.
This is a little Raiders silver right
Yeah, a
now.
little silver and black. You know what I mean? Yeah. But no, I don't wear the costume.
No, you don't. You don't.
No.
Yeah, what a good friend of yours. I met him through you, Clem Daniels.
Right.
Was a Raiders running back in the old days of the AFL.
Yeah,
he was the great running back for the Raiders.
Yeah, we go to the games together. We sit in the owner's box. Luckily, I wiggle my way in there. Mr. Davis lets us sit up there. I should say Al.
And that is you showed a lot of respect though for men you do respect.
Yeah, but
You've known
friends.
him a long
yeah,
time.
But we're friends.
You don't call him Mr. Davis when you're around him.
Davis. No, we're friends. I've known him probably 35 years or so.
Good food in the box?
You don't even really call him Al. Dude, that's a boy. And he said, you can call me Al.
Yeah.
2-2 the count to Anderson Hernandez. But when the club's not doing well, you're up there with him. Does he get a little scheme sometimes? You ever?
Well, he doesn't like to lose. So does that answer your question?
So he's probably been steamed a lot here lately. Yeah. Shallow left, Jimmy Rollins. That is the inning. It's another quick inning for Pedro Martinez. He has retired 7 in a row. 1-0. The Phils are leading. Ibanez, then Worth. Two big power hitters coming up for the Phils. General manager Steve Phillips, and right now it is 1-0. The Phillies are leading as we go to the last half of the 4th inning. The hunt for October continues on ESPN Wednesday with 2 games. First at 7 Eastern, the Los Angeles Angels and the Boston Red Sox, who may, if the playoffs started tomorrow, they'd be facing each other in the division series. The Red Sox has the wild card. They'll be on Wednesday night at 7, then at 10 Eastern, a battle between 2 National League West wild card contestants, and the Giants. It's their last gasp if they don't do something big against the Rockies. For them, it'll be wait till next year. Likely Matt Cain up for the Giants in that game Wednesday at 10 Eastern. Wednesday Night Baseball presented by Smirnoff Ice on ESPN. And here is Raul Ibanez. A strike call to the outside, a fastball from Tim Redding. Both pitchers starting to settle in now in the last inning or two. Pedro retired the Mets in order in each of the last 2 innings. Change up off the outside.
You know, we had talked about Ibanez last time we was here a couple of weeks ago and how he was struggling. And Charlie Manuel told us that he wasn't seeing the ball well, wasn't recognizing it, and he wasn't exploding. And he was late on everything. And I've noticed that tonight he's also late.
Right center field. But he was out off the end of the bat on that one. And that's Beltran calling off Sullivan. One away. Ibanez is 0 for 2.
See, watch this at bat. He's late, and that's what Charlie was saying. He's late, so he rushes to try to get there. And in doing so, let's watch his head. I watched his head coming at bat earlier when he's trying to rush to get there. Well, he keeps his head pretty still right there, but he's rushing to get there. And that's what causes him to miss the ball. And when we say miss it, he just barely misses it. He gets underneath it, and because he's rushing a little bit trying to get the barrel out there.
The curveball is too low to Jason Orth, another Phillies home run hitter.
You know, when I watched that, I did that a lot as a hitter. I was always late in rushing, and what you have to do is you collapse your backside in order to try to get the bat head to the ball, because otherwise you can't get it there, and it creates a loop in your swing. And you know, what I used to do, Joe, is if I swung at a bad pitch, I would tell myself, all right, I got to wait longer and see the ball. But then I'd wait too long, and I'd end up rushing to try to catch up.
That's why timing is the real key to anybody as a hitter. The other stuff is secondary. Timing. That allows you to flow into the swing, allows you to see the ball quick enough, know where it's going to end up, and go get it.
Where were you when I needed you?
Well, actually, no, I think it was Ted Williams and Willie Mays.
I just didn't have the right haircut, I guess, to make it to the major leagues.
Shane Victorino. Now, he didn't get that over in the islands.
No.
That was not a King Kamehameha the Great kind of a haircut. Apparently, he just got that a couple of days ago. He's not been hitting. I guess maybe thought it would change his luck or whatever. He's getting a lot of grief about it from his Phillies teammate. This is not something where a bunch of Phillies hitters say, hey, let's do this. We'll all do it together. He was sort of out on his own there with it. That was smashed right to Hernandez. 2 down. Let's go to the studio. Here's Ryan Burr at a Sports Center right now. Brad Penny made his debut as a Giant right here in Philadelphia and won a game 4-0. Pitched 8 shutout innings in his debut and has not lost yet for the Giants. And he was the stopper today as Phillies grounds out to right. And a very quick inning for Redding, only 9 pitches. Pedro back to the hill with a 1-0 lead. The hunt for October, Major League Baseball, ESPN here. Right on top of it, the Phillies are looking pretty strong for another round of October baseball as Pedro Martinez throws a fastball in there to Tim Redding for a called strike. Now, Pedro has retired 7 in a row. He allowed 5 base runners the first 2 innings, but did not allow a run. Now he's shown signs of starting to settle in as his slider is just off the outside. 1 ball, 1 strike. Luis Castillo and Corey Sullivan will follow. Meanwhile, on the flip side, Tim Redding was in dire straits in the first inning. A run was in, 2 men on base, big hitters coming up. He got through it with just that 1-run scoring as Rollins throws him out. The 8th in a row retired by Pedro, but Redding has retired 9 in a row. So both pitchers settling in. Remember, Redding, he hadn't had any kind of a Pedro-like career, but he's always been good against the Phillies. This is his team. He's had some ownership over the Phillies lineup for a while.
And he's pitching for a spot maybe in the future for the Mets rotation or for somebody else in free agency. So that's right now we're trying to figure out who's part of the problem and who's part of the solution. Now they know injuries have been a major part of the problem, but they're having to figure out what is this team going to look like as they move forward.
And a fastball for a strike to Castillo, who has singled, and then he got hit by a pitch right around the elbow in the second inning, and we're afraid maybe he was seriously injured. He was in terrible pain, but he's able to continue. You get a little armament there over that right elbow now.
A lot of guys wear that every at bat.
1 ball, 1 strike to Castillo. The curveball is drilled right to Utley. He hit it hard, but into some bad luck. So 2 men are gone. Well, when the season began, you had Reyes at the top of the Mets batting order, one of the best leadoff men in the game. You had in the middle of the order Wright, Delgado, Beltran, 3 sluggers, and then you go to the ball club now, and even David Wright spent some time on the shelf after he got beamed about 3 or so weeks ago. And most of those big guys have been out for huge chunks of the season.
And we can, as Steve said earlier, it doesn't matter who you are, which team you're on. If you take your 3 or 4 best players out of the lineup for any length of time like that, you're not going to play well. You're going to be a sub-500 team. Like you said, you can't have that much depth sitting around. Now that you can have some guys in the minor leagues that you may be able to bring up, to hold the tide till they get back. But I mean, these guys are gone looks like they've been gone just about all season. And it tells me that Reyes says he wants to try to get back before the end of the season, play the last week. Delgado's trying to get back, and Delgado needs to get back so he can help evaluate what he wants to do next year, because he doesn't have a contract with the Mets after this year, and they don't know whether they're going to sign him or not. But they did say that they're going to look and see if he's healthy or not. So they're going to have to make a lot of decisions based on how well these guys that are injured can come back and help them next year.
Well, they want some good health, but also there's some thought that the huge dimensions of their new ballpark, Citi Field, which really seems to favor the pitcher, and they have some new ideas about the kind of player they like, especially in left field. They got Beltran at center. When he's healthy, one of the best center fielders in the game. They like somebody like him to patrol left field as well. They got Frank Cooper, a young right fielder that they like. As Pedro retires the side in order again, Corey Sullivan goes down. That's 10 in a row. That's 11 pitch inning for Pedro. Redding back to the hill. Here in Philadelphia, and this I thought was a groundbreaking ballpark. Camden Yards in Baltimore certainly was when it was erected. This ballpark has a great seating configuration for baseball, where people even well down the left and right field lines are angled in, facing right toward the pitcher's mound at home plate. It's a beautiful ballpark, filled almost every night, and today filled twice. Will be about 90,000 or so paid admissions for this doubleheader by the time everybody has been counted. 45,000 plus already here for game one, and another big crowd for game two. The Phillies won game one 5-4, and they lead here in the nightcap 1-0 against Tim Redding, who throws a curveball to Carlos Ruiz for a strike, and it's 1-2. Now, Pedro Feliz led off the second with a double for the Phillies. Since that time, nobody has reached base for either team. Laced foul into the seats off the left field line. Still 1-2. Redding has retired 9 in a row, and Pedro Martinez has retired 10 in a row. So, and Pedro has retired 9 of those in a row since Feliz double in the second. So the pitchers are right on top of their games, and Pedro, and you wonder how long he can keep doing it at age 37. He's been sensational and is doing it again tonight. And Redding seems to do it almost every time against the Phillies as Pedro is on deck. That one's into right center field, hit well, and caught by Sullivan.
John, I think one of the reasons Pedro has done well is because, as you said, he doesn't have a lot of innings on his body this year. Let's take a look at Pedro. Remember I mentioned he was throwing better now? Let's take a look. In the first inning, he wasn't throwing very hard. 86 miles an hour, 85 miles an hour. He just was not throwing hard, 86. Then when I noticed now he's up to 91, 90 miles an hour. He's throwing much better now. His fastball has more movement, and it's alive. And you just wonder, maybe he just got loose. He found his rhythm. That's one thing about good pitchers. They find their rhythm as the game goes along.
You know, it's interesting, Joe, when you watch that for those first 3 fastballs from the first inning, he was rather passive with his delivery, but as it went on, the velocity went up because he was much more aggressive with his delivery going toward the plate.
1-1 now to Pedro, who grounded out to short his first time. 1-0. The Phillies leading. The Phillies had a great opportunity to go by in each of the first 2 innings. A base running snafu cost them in the first inning, or at least it seems to have cost them. Instead of no worse than second and third and nobody out, they ended up first and second. Jimmy Rollins was at second base after a leadoff walk. He was at second base after a walk and a single by Victorino, and Utley hit one off the left center field wall. Rollins was going back towards second as if to tag up, and Shane Victorino, running hard, almost ran right up his back. And Rollins ended up scoring, but Victorino, as the throw was coming in, had to stop at second, and Utley got only a single out of it, and they didn't get either one of them home later in the inning. 2-2 the count. Pedro, right center field. Here's Sullivan. So 2 men are gone. Let's go to the studio for an update with Ryan Bird. All right. 2 down, and here is Jimmy Rollins, who has scored the only run of the game. Led off with a walk against Redding, a guy that he just has not been able to solve. He's had a lifetime of heartache against Tim Redding.
You think it's that extreme?
Yeah, that's a little heavy.
That's heartache.
6 hits in 39 at bats. This is a former MVP.
Right.
A lifetime of heartache.
But he walked tonight. He's got to walk.
That was a respite from all of that heartache.
Yeah.
He hit a fly ball out in the second, more of the usual. But he did get that walk, and he scored the only run.
Therein lies Jimmy Rollins' problem this year. Too many of those balls hit in the air. A lot of pop-ups, a lot of fly balls.
A lot of heartache. On to the 6th. David Wright will be coming up. Then Beltran against Pedro Martinez. Pedro and the Phillies leading 1-0.
PN Sunday Night Baseball, presented by Taco Bell. Brought to you by the Ford F-150. It's not just a pickup truck, it's a Ford F-150. Budweiser, reach for the perfect combination of flavor and refreshment. Budweiser, the great American lager. And YellowBook.com. The moment you need it, Yellow Book it.
Here's David Wright. He had one of his best days as a big leaguer yesterday. A game-winning home run in the ninth inning. He had 2 homers, 6 RBIs, equaling a career record. Now he belts one into left center field against Pedro Martinez. Way back there and off the wall. Wright was in a trot. The throw, and he's got a double, and he had to hurry to get it. He thought he'd hit one out of here again.
Well, he thought this was a bandbox because he's used to hitting balls like that in Citi Field, and they get caught, or at least he hits a gapper.
Like Jerry Manuel's going out to check and see whether that ball went out and question whether or not that stayed in the ballpark. So it was interesting. David Wright cheated on that. He got the high fastball a couple of times and missed it. He cheated on that one, was able to turn on it, drive it out there. Jerry Manuel going out to toss to Bruce Dreckman, the second base umpire, to see whether that ball might have gone out of the ballpark or hit a railing and come back in.
Well, that wasn't his good fastball either.
No.
Oh, that fan reach over and touch it?
I didn't think so.
No, look, it didn't look like he touched it right there.
It's like he pulled his hand back, thinking better of it.
I don't think he could reach it anyway because that ball hit low on the wall there. It didn't hit. It was coming down, almost straight down. It was more of a fly ball than a line drive.
David Wright with his 33rd double of the year. And here is Beltran to try and knock him in. Beltran has walked and grounded out, and he takes a called strike. And you can see well below that fan. What do you have? He had his hat. Is he reaching a hat out? Pedro Martinez facing Beltran. Beltran is 4 for 14 lifetime against Pedro. First hit for David Wright against his former teammate Pedro Martinez. He's facing Pedro for the first time in his career tonight.
I think he was sitting dead red there, but it wasn't Pedro's best fastball. The high fastball he's been throwing in before was in the 90s. That one was 87, so it didn't have quite the velocity, and David Wright was able to get to it.
0-1 to Beltran. And That slider is ripped foul. Strike 2.
It's interesting how he's gone after David Wright with fastballs, and with Beltran he's gone with the slider, trying to kind of cut it in on his hands a little bit in every at bat. So really a plan with his former teammates. He's watched and seen them over several years, what they can handle and what they can't.
Well, I think most people would say that David Wright's a slider speed bat, meaning the slider's out over the plate, he handles better. Beltran's more of a fastball hitter, and a good fastball hitter. Not that David Wright can't hit fastballs, but that his bat speed is not like Beltran's.
0-2 the count. Right at second. Pedro checking it. Changeup. It's knocked down by Ruiz. He keeps it in front of him. Wright has to hold on. Wright he's not a great speedster per se, but he runs well, and he's a guy who can steal bases. He has 24 steals this year, so you've got to keep an eye on him if you're Pedro Martinez. Wright opening the inning with a double. He is the possible tying run. Wright, who had those 6 RBIs yesterday, this double here in the 6th inning, his first hit of this day. He'd been 0 for 6 today. And a fastball is fouled and out of play off to the left.
You know, John, you talk about David Wright stolen bases with 24 bags. Well, Pedro Martinez knows that. He looked at him, looked back at the plate, then looked back at him again, trying to freeze him, understanding that this may be a situation. I wouldn't run with Beltran up right here. I may run with Daniel Murphy coming up next, but trying to make sure David Wright stops and doesn't get a moving lead toward third base to try to get a break.
Make him stop. Daniel Murphy on deck. Mets with their first base runner since the 2nd inning here in the 6th. And the leadoff double by Wright.
You know, it wasn't a big deal, but Pedro, you know, when he won his game two games ago to win, gave him 100 wins in both leagues, which is unusual.
He's the 9th pitcher ever to do that.
He had 117 when he was with Boston, and 101 since he's, you know, in the National League, and
including the Dodgers and the Expos and the Mets.
He has 4 here with the Phillies, which put him over the 100 in the National League.
Well, your old friend Cy Young did that. He's one of the 9.
Buddy,
you can't do that to Joe.
Yeah. Well, he's one of his fellow Hall of Famers. You've communed with him up there at the Otisaka Hotel.
And former Philly pitcher Jim Bunning did.
Yeah. Nolan Ryan. Gaylord Perry.
Ferguson Jenkins.
Fergie. He's one of them. Another Hall of Famer. Changed up. Struck him out.
That changeup fantastic. Well, what makes that changeup effective is the arm action for Pedro Martinez. The arm speed. It's the same. It looks very much alike the fastball and changeup, and that deception leads to the change of velocity that therefore the hitter just reads fastball and can't hold up. You see the pitch right there, change up on the outside corner, 78, then the fastball at 88, almost in the same spot and plane. Then fastball at 90, and then he comes change up down in the zone right there on Jeremy Reed.
And that's a look from K-Zone, brought to you by Ford. Here's Murphy. Fastball too high. Murphy has struck out and popped up to short. He is 0 for 2.
And Steve, that arm speed is why I think the circle change is the most effective of all changeups, because you throw it just as hard as you do your fastball and it comes out softer. See, I can recognize Tim Redding's changeup even from up here. He slows his arm speed down. You can see it, but you can't see the arm speed slow down on the circle change, because the harder you throw it, the better off you are.
It's the grip that changes the velocity of the pitch, right?
And the circle change, meaning that, well, we don't have a ball up here, but you make a circle with your index finger and your thumb, and you put the ball in between there, and you just grip it and you just throw it as hard as you can. Well, let's take a look at these pitches to Beltran. There's the fastball away, and then this is a perfect changeup. Watch the location. Look at that. Location starts in the strike zone. People say, well, that was out of the strike zone. Yes, it was by the time he swung at it. But the ball started in the strike zone. We talked about that movement, and the circle change allows you to do that.
David Wright at second base, 1 out. He is the possible tying run. Murphy fouls one. And the count is a ball and a strike to Murphy.
Let's take a look at the changeup from Pedro. Now watch Beltran and see how quickly he starts. He gets to that little toe tap. Now he starts, and he just can't wait long enough, and he sees that ball in the strike zone, and he goes after it and moves away.
changeup has long been a signature pitch from Pedro.
Right.
And back in the days, it wasn't unusual for him to throw a 95-mile-an-hour fastball and maybe a 78-mile-an-hour changeup.
And I think he may have learned that changeup. He was talking about Mario Soto. He was one. He had the best. I mean, he was unbelievable because he had that 99-mile-an-hour fastball to go with it.
Now listen, Pedro Martinez used to throw 95, 96. Right. He doesn't anymore, but I think what's happened is he's been able to make that adjustment to not be a flamethrower because he can throw multiple pitches for a strike. Right. He can throw the changeup or the curveball or that cut fastball at any time that he wants, and he commands the fastball and hits his spots with it.
But I think what's great is he doesn't throw the curveball too often, so it always surprises you.
3-1 the count. Well, he throws the changeup right there, and it surprised him. Strike two.
Well, he's got him set up. He's throwing Daniel Murphy the curveball a few times tonight. He hasn't shown it in this at bat. He's gone fastball, changeup, and this is where he struck him out the first time up with the curveball.
Murphy struck out in the first, popped to short in the third. He's 0 for 2. Wright led off the inning with a double, but then Beltran struck out. Now it's 3 balls and 2 strikes to Murphy. Jeremy Reed, another left-handed hitter, is on deck.
You know, they take him that long to get the sign. Tells me that he was wanting to throw a fastball, but and they couldn't get the location right. When you take that long, it tells you, see, he's shaking him off to where he wants to throw it. Yeah, see, and they can't get together on where. I mean, if he just wanted to throw a changeup, he would give him the signal, and you don't need location with a changeup. If he's going to throw him a curveball, you don't need location with the curveball. You need location with the fastball. He gave him the sign, and he basically said yes, and then he shook off the location. So, you know, I guess now Luis going out there to talk to him.
Now it'll be interesting to see if they give any sign at all on this pitch. Runner on second base, the catcher runs through a sequence of signs, or they have some code as to when they're going to go with the pitch.
Well, he just went, as soon as he got behind the plate, he went into the stretch. It's right along the first base line. That's a foul ball.
You see, that's the fastball. I knew he was going to throw him a fastball because it was only location that Pedro was hesitant on. He didn't get it where he wanted it because he looks like he gets it down and in. It's supposed to be down and away. It's a fastball down and in. But I knew he wanted it. When a pitcher stands out there that long, when he only throws fastball, curveball, change, if he's going to throw the other two, you don't need location. The fastball, you need location. So when it takes that long to get to that point, that tells you what the pitch is going to be.
So it looked like the catcher wanted down and in. Pedro wanted down and away. So they said, okay. And then finally he threw the ball down and in. In the right field and playable for Worth.
So now he came back with a curveball.
2 down. Ten years ago, September the 10th, Pedro and the Red Sox were up against the Yankees, and Pedro pitched a complete game and struck out 17 Yankees. He allowed 1 hit, and that was a solo homer hit by Chili Davis in the second inning, the only run for the Yankees, and he just blew them away as a team all night long for a 3-1 Red Sox win.
Well, that curveball he threw, that's what we used to call a Yellerhammer. That was a real fast, hard curveball. Like the snake, you know what I mean?
And that is the inning.
Great job by Pedro to pitch out of that leadoff double.
Leadoff double for Wright, and then he stood and watched the rest of the inning from second.
to the line. On a right.
Loop shot in the left. Here comes Conine. He can't get it. He's going home. Snow trying to score. The tag. A collision. He is out at home. And the Florida Marlins have cut down the Giants. The upset of the 2003 postseason.
And that was the end of the year for the Giants. The Marlins moved on and eventually won the World Series, beating the Yankees in Game 6 at Yankee Stadium, back of Josh Beckett, who pitched a shutout. Stay tuned. Later tonight, we will announce the left fielder on our 20th year All-Star team. 20 years of covering Major League Baseball on ESPN. And that was a moment, as seen right here. JT Snow, a heartbreaking moment for the Giants. A great moment in the history of the Florida Marlins. And Pudge Rodriguez, the man who would not be deterred. JT Snow, the son of a great NFL player, Jack Snow, and himself a very good player in high school, a football player. And he tried to run over him and knock that ball loose, and Pudge would not give it up. And when he held on to it, the Marlins had won.
Pedro Martinez and Jamie Moyer talking in the dugout. And that conversation's been going on really since Pedro came off the mound and sat down in there.
Well, when he first came off, Jamie Moyer was doing all the talking.
Shane Victorino in the center field. And Beltran is waiting for it. And there is one away. There's some history made in Texas. And here's Ryan Burr with an update. Thanks, Ryan, and congratulations to Ichiro.
That's amazing. 9 straight years of 200 hits. Man.
Ichiro began the day with a batting average of .355. Must have been slumping lately.
Well, it only seems like he's slumping because Joe Mauer has not been.
Right.
He stays on top in the league batting average.
Mauer had 3 more hits today, .366 average. He hit his 27th home run. That's the new part of Mauer's game. He's always hit well for average, but now he's the whole package. He's still hitting for a spectacular average and hitting for spectacular power. 1-1 to Chase Utley, who has knocked in the only run of the game, and they've got the shift on for him. The Mets have 3 infielders to the right of second, a la Ryan Howard. The third baseman right is at shortstop. Ryan Howard is on deck. And that change up in there for a called strike, and it is 1-2. Sunday night baseball from Philadelphia. 44,901 the paid crowd. Nearly 90,000 paid admissions for this day-night doubleheader for baseball in Philadelphia on this day, the first big weekend of NFL football this year. I'm John Miller with Hall of Famer Joe Morgan, former Mets general manager Steve Phillips, bringing you the Phillies first place in the National League East, and the Mets, and that ball is crushed deep center, and there is Beltran in front of the .398 marker, and Utley is retired for out number 2.
I think the thing that saved him was a 2-strike swing. This is more of a 2-strike swing rather than a real full turn on the fastball pitch. Watch the swing. See, just look at that, just his hands. See how his hands just go out there, and that's why that ball didn't go out. If he throws that pitch 2-0, he would have driven it out of the ballpark.
So Utley, who has knocked in a run tonight, a little bit shy on that one. Here is Ryan Howard, and they've got the shift on for Howard, much the same as they had it on for Chase Utley. Howard has lined out to the second baseman and has struck out. 2 down and nobody on. Tim Redding has retired 14 consecutive Phillies. Phillies have not had a base runner since Pedro Feliz led off the second with a double. They got a run in the first. Out in the right field, the second baseman Castillo has backed up several feet now. He's in the outfield. And back to the screen.
It's interesting, it's almost the same shift as when Chase Utley was at the plate. And you'd think Ryan Howard, big guy, pull hitter. Ryan Howard actually gets more hits the other way than Chase Utley does. Chase Utley has 92 hits to right field this year. For Ryan Howard, he has 60 hits to right field. Ryan Howard has 40 hits to left. Chase Utley only 21. So Chase Utley's actually by far more of a pull hitter to right field than Ryan Howard is.
That is at the knees for a strike. And Howard thought it was a little bit too low.
Howard pulls the ball on the ground to the right side, but when he hits it in the air, he tends to go more the other way or back up the middle.
2-2 to Howard. Howard 3 hits in 28 lifetime at bats against Tim Reddy. And that windup, Joe, he gave a slide step on that windup. With nobody on base and out of the windup.
Well, we continue to talk recently about timing. He's trying to throw his timing off, trying to release the ball quick. And you notice it was a fastball. See, he just steps and throws a fastball. He's trying to surprise him. He's trying to break his rhythm and throw off his timing.
The curveball is outside and he walks it. Howard will take a walk because he never gets a hit against Tim Reddick. So with 2 down, he becomes the first Phillies base runner since the 2nd inning. Ibanez will come up, another power hitter up here for the Phillies. One of 4 to have hit more than 30 home runs for the Phillies this year.
I think one thing Tim Reddick knows, first 2 passes through the order, he holds the opposition to a .258 batting average. After that, they're hitting .364 against him, so he's trying to give a different look, trying to change his sequence and change the timing of the hitters.
So this is his 3rd time through the order. Ibanez is flied out to shallow center and to right center. He's 0 for 2. And a bouncer, Castillo. And just like that, the inning is over. Phillies clinging to that 1-run lead back of Pedro Martinez. And Pedro back to the hill for the 7th. To the 7th inning, the late innings begin in a 1-0 Phillies lead over the Mets. And they have won every start that Pedro Martinez has made for them, albeit in 2 of those starts he did not pitch that many innings because long rain delays intruded and Jamie Moyer ended up picking him up. But Pedro has been outstanding so far tonight, clinging to that 1-run lead.
And the reason he's outstanding is that circle change. This is what we talk about, circle change. Here's the circle. You make it with that. And here's the changeup. You throw it as hard as you can. And what you do here to make it move like he does, there's put more pressure on this side, and that's why the ball runs away from the left-handed hitter.
Go ahead, George.
But that's why the circle change. You're holding it here. Here's the circle with these fingers here. There's the circle. And you throw it as hard as you can.
Oh, I'm out front.
See?
I'm out front.
I'd be like Pedro used to be. If I thought you were looking for the changeup, I'd have to buzz you with the fastball. That's the way Pedro used to be when he was in the National League the first time.
2-1 the count to Schneider. He used to have a reputation when he was younger in Montreal of being a headhunter. There were some brawls in which he was involved. Guys would charge the mound against him.
I remember Gary Reedus charged him one day, and he had a perfect game going. He knocked Reedus down or hit him, and Reedus charged the mound. So there was no doubt he wasn't trying to hit him that day.
It was Reedus, not Reggie Sanders?
I think it was Reedus.
And over to the bag goes Ryan Howard, and Schneider is out number 1.
Let's take a look at this circle change that we're talking about. See his circle right there? That's the circle that we're talking about. He can pull down with his fingers, and that's how he gets the rotation on it to move away. See how that ball moves away from left-handers and into right-handers? It's where you put the pressure with your other fingers on your hand that creates that movement.
Pedro has extraordinarily long fingers. He has the fingers of a world-class pianist. That ball is into the gap in left center. Cut off nicely by Ibanez, and he will hold Anderson Hernandez to a single in a one-run game. That is a huge play.
We talked about the Philadelphia Phillies defense, and it's a major part of their success this year, and this is exactly the sort of play in a one-run game that makes a difference. There's no box score number for this, nothing that shows up. But you see off the bat the ball slicing. Ibanez takes a good route to the ball and is able to get a jump on it to cut it off, and knows that he's got to slow himself down, turn, and at least get it to the cutoff man, because if he gets it out of his hand, Hernandez is going to see the ball in flight and try to get it in, and instead he makes it all the way on a short hop to Utley at second base. Great play.
Well, they're going to have a pinch hitter now. Josh Tolley, who is a rookie who had 4 hits as the first game catcher for the Mets. And he's going to be the pinch hitter for Tim Redding. And Rich Doobie, the pitching coach, has gone out there, and they are conferencing. All of the infielders and the catcher have all gathered around Pedro Martinez and the pitching coach, Doobie.
This is one of the Mets stars of the future, meaning Tolley.
There's Sean Green getting ready in the Mets bullpen. So we've seen the last of Redding, who was superb for 6 innings, although he had thrown 103 pitches. But he shut down the Phillies as per usual. For whatever reason, he just seems to be at his very best against the Phillies. So here's Tolley, and the Mets are thrilled with what they've seen of him so far. Tolley has had 8 hits and 18 at-bats in the big leagues after spending the season in the minors, including 4 for 4 in game 1 today.
You know, Ditchley, though, he's the kind of guy, rookies, Pedro Martinez loves rookies because he uses their aggressiveness against them. And the key for Pedro against the young guy, get ahead in the count. He gets ahead with that fastball. Now he's got the chance to move the fastball around or pull the string, go to the changeup or roll that curveball in there.
1 strike to Tolley. There is Ibanez, and that is out number 2. Tolley retired for the first time today after going 4 for 4 in game 1. Tolley hit .328 in the Eastern League this year with the Binghamton Mets with 29 doubles. We may be seeing a lot of Josh Tolley in the big leagues come next year.
Well, they've got a couple other guys at the World Cup. You know, Jonathan Marlowe and a friend of ours, Ike Davis, playing first base. He's the son of Ron Davis. We were talking about in between innings. Ron's a long friend of ours.
Long time.
Yeah.
Relief pitcher and a good one in the big leagues with the Yankees, with the Minnesota Twins. Here's Luis Castillo. He has singled, been hit by a pitch, and lined out to second. And Hernandez diving back to the bag at first. Hernandez has 6 steals this year. Pedro has now thrown 97 pitches. I guess the question about how strong he'd be after throwing 119 pitches in his last start has been answered in a positive way. Holding a long while here. And low, and the count is 1 ball and no strikes to Castillo.
I think with that question being answered about Pedro and his stamina and endurance in this game, the next question is a 1-run game. What does Charlie Manuel do as he starts looking ahead to the 9th inning, and who will be his closer to warm up and come in this game? Brad Lidge, Ryan Matson? as options?
I think we're going to have to wait and see, because Charlie said he's not sure. It'll be a spur-of-the-moment decision. He doesn't know exactly who he's going to use.
Manson has pitched in 4 of the last 5 days. Lidge pitched in game 1 today, but gave up 3 hits and 2 runs in his inning of work where he did get the save.
There's Brad.
Lidge threw 28 pitches in that first game as well.
He's probably wondering as much as we are.
And the fastball is low.
Brett Myers, a guy who has closed in the past, who's coming back from injury. Pitched yesterday, but not available to pitch probably until Tuesday, is what Charlie Manuel said. So not really one of the options or considerations for Charlie.
He also gave up 3 runs.
Charlie was not pleased with the way Myers looked yesterday. He did not pitch well. His stuff was just not very good.
Now, when you're coming back from injury, it's going to be inconsistent at times. Sometimes you'll be good, sometimes you're not. Now, Ryan Manson has the stuff to be a closer, but he's blown 6 saves this year. Brad Lidge is blowing 10, but Manson's blown 6 himself. His 5th loss last night in that game.
And not just this year, he has had the same problem blowing saves since anytime he has been given the opportunity over the last couple of years.
Hernandez dives safely back to first. Ryan Howard on the bag with him.
I was wondering if Hernandez was going to try to steal, because Pedro, to me, is easier to steal off of. The better the pitcher, the better the rhythm, the easier it is to time the guy.
Well, Castillo's not much of a threat to knock him in from first base.
Right, that's why I thought he would try to steal earlier in the count.
Pedro ready. Hernandez not running. That one is a long left field line foul.
Well, that was more of a slide step there. He didn't give him a chance to go there. And Pedro is just such a smart pitcher. That's why I knew he would do well here in Philly. Not as well as he's done, but I knew he would pitch well and help win ball games. He knows how to win. He knows how to pitch. And even if he gets down to 88 miles an hour, he can still take enough off the changeup so that the speed variance is still the same. He's 91 tonight, but he can beat you with an 89-mile-an-hour fastball as well.
2-2 the count. There goes Hernandez. And the throw goes right into Hernandez. Or it might have gone into center field otherwise. And Hernandez, I don't know if it beamed him or not. The Mets, one of the Mets trainers is out of the dugout.
Well, Utley went after the ball. He was going to make sure it wasn't going to bounce through and go into center field. So he kind of laid on Hernandez. So that, I just think the ball hit him in the back. Now watch, he's going to make sure now. Utley's going to make sure as he hits him with his knee, his left knee right there in the chest, looks like. But he's going to make sure that that ball doesn't go through into center field. Well, he hit him 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, he bruised him in multiple places. The ball actually looks like it did hit Hernandez as well. Utley a little late getting to the base there, Joe. Huh? That ball's kind of on him already as he's getting there. And Hernandez,
with 2 strikes and 2 outs, he didn't want to give up his position too quickly. But you should be there. But he was protecting against the ground ball going through.
And I think the other thing with Pedro Martinez out here, I think he's looking to pitch himself into a playoff spot on this roster. Cliff Lee, Cole Hamels, but Jay Happ, their young left-hander, has an oblique strain. He hasn't pitched a couple times around. Pedro, the way he's pitched this year, he has to be a consideration now for a playoff start.
So now 3-2. The possible tying run at second base. Tyler Walker up in the bullpen. Just off the inside. A walk for Castillo.
I'm not so sure Pedro is upset about walking him, because he knows Castillo's a very good hitter, having a good year, and now he gets a chance to go against Corey Sullivan, who, you know, is a young guy that he can maybe handle. But Castillo has seen it all, and he's a very good hitter.
You saw the look at that pitch from K-Zone, brought to you by Ford. It was, according to K-Zone, exactly as Todd Titchener said it was, too far in. So here is Corey Sullivan. 2 men on, 2 men out. Pedro up over 100 pitches for the game. Strike on the outside.
91 miles an hour, so he has been able to maintain his velocity, John. But I'm sure that he's going to give you all that he has left in this at-bat, because this could be his last at-bat. He has 2 more at-bats. 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 2 more at inning anyway.
And almost surely will be his last inning. Trying to get through it. Clinging to a 1-0 lead. Outside of the high. And that looked a little labored, that
well,
fastball.
he loaded up on that one. You can see he hesitated just a hair longer to gather himself to let it go, and by doing so his arm was late.
Hernandez, who stole second. Possible tying run. Castillo at first. The possible go-ahead run. Pedro in a tight spot. David Wright would be next. He's on deck. Corey Sullivan trying to get the big hit for the Mets. In the air. Ibanez. 7 strong from Pedro Martinez. 7 shutout innings. 5 hits allowed. 6 strikeouts. And that may be his final pitch of the night. A job done well again by Pedro Martinez, who has a 1-0 lead. People, all-stars among us in your community by signing up to volunteer at MLBGoBeyond.com. MLBGoBeyond.com. And all week you've been helping us celebrate our 20th season of Major League Baseball coverage on ESPN by voting for the left fielder of our 20th year all-star team at ESPN.com. Barry Bonds, Ricky Henderson, Manny Ramirez, the nominees. So who was the winner? We'll find out here momentarily as Sean Green has come in to pitch now for the Mets in relief of Tim Redding. Great night for Redding, except for one thing. He leaves the game behind. Gave up 1 run on 3 hits in 6 innings to the slugging Phillies and leaves the game and cannot get a win. So is it Bonds, Manny, or Ricky Henderson, the nominee? It was Ricky. He won 55% of the vote. Bonds 37%. Manny 8%. Ricky, the all-time record holder for steals, runs, and just all-around agitation of pitchers and catchers and infielders. The man who created a lot of RBIs for anybody who hit behind it for many, many years. Ricky Henderson. Go to ESPN.com tomorrow, and you can start making your pick for center field, which we will announce next Sunday from St. Louis. Sean Green hit Jason Worth.
Now that just got away from Sean Green. No intent on that. He's one of those kind of low three-quarter deliveries. It looked like the ball just kind of slipped out of the side of his hand. Doesn't make Jason Worth feel any better.
Yeah, but he definitely wasn't throwing at him. Not going to throw him with an 0-2 pitch.
Fans react always thinking that this is the start of something. You see Schneider set up away, and the ball just kind of slips out of his hand and ends up getting Worth.
Well, we talk about guys not being able to get out of the way of the ball. I don't know if he can get out of the way of this one. I mean, there's no place to go there. He was moving away, and it gets him on the back leg. So that's a little different than other guys we've seen dive in.
So now Pedro Phillies will come up. Phillies, who has doubled and grounded out, facing this man, Sean Green, in relief of Tim Redding. And now one of the Phillies trainers is going to come out and see if he can be of assistance to Jason Worth, who is hurting over there. Davey Lopes, number 15, a great base stealer. Now the first base coach for the Phillies and a base running coach, and a guy who is still one of the great authorities on the art of stealing a base.
Ricky Henderson, Dave Lopes, and myself were all on the team together.
Really?
Yeah, my final year in Oakland. And I talked base stealing with Ricky. I'm just thinking, I don't remember talking base stealing with Davey very much.
Well, what would there have been to talk about between you and Davey?
I don't know, but Ricky and I spent a lot of time together in spring training, so we talked a lot about base stealing.
There would have been you and Davey talking together about base stealing. Would have been a lot at that stage of your careers.
Yeah,
both been around for 100 years. Would have been a lot of oh yeah, that's the way I did it. Yeah, you're right. That's the way I did it. Man, double play. Pedro Feliz on the first pitch grounds into a pair, started by his opposite number, David Wright of the Mets.
Sean Green with that sinker ball gets Feliz to top the ball to David Wright. Jason Worth, you have a little venom in you after you get hit with a pitch, so he said, I'm going to go in hard on this double play. David Wright comes down to the ground, gives the feed to Castillo, and he goes in sliding late, trying to get a piece of Castillo. Good turn by Luis Castillo right there. He's always been pretty good at turning that double play. And Worth is saying, anytime you get hit with a pitch, Joe, you think to yourself, hey, I don't mind a ground ball right here. I want to get a piece of a second baseman. Good clean slide, though.
Ruiz. Anderson Hernandez. Well, he hit Worth with one pitch, and then 2 pitches later, he gets the first, second, and third outs of the inning. On to the 8th inning. David Wright, Carlos Beltran, 2 sluggers coming up. Is Pedro done? Well, we'll come back and find out.
Night Baseball is presented by Taco Bell. Think outside the bun. And in part by Lexus and the new HS Hybrid. And One A Day Men's, the official multivitamin of MLB, specially formulated for men.
Pedro Martinez, number 45, is still out there at age 37 and having thrown 107 pitches tonight after throwing 119 in his previous start. And here he is facing David Wright. And he blows a fastball right by him on the first pitch.
I'm a little surprised that Pedro's still out there, John. You know, the Phillies have a 6-game lead. He's pitched well. You don't want to ruin this outing and his confidence by sitting him out there maybe if he's tired.
He paints the outside edge of the knees with an 87-mile-an-hour fastball.
I'm a lot surprised, Joe, by that.
Well, the point is, Steve, that if you don't have that kind of confidence in your bullpen at this stage, I don't know what you're going to do.
A little bit high.
There has to be a way for you to be able to get 6 outs, whether it's in the playoffs or whatever it is. You have to have a way to be able to do that in the ball game.
Jim Leland said something one time that made a lot of sense. You can't be afraid to lose one game that could end up costing you more than that.
Just off the outside. Pedro wanted that call.
Pedro Martinez is a guy that right now is over 110 pitches. You see Ruiz set up outside. He gets that 2-seam fastball, and K-Zone says just off the plate, but close.
You know, with 2 strikes, that's not off the plate.
Yeah, that's a good pitch, and that's one of the David Wright. That's an awfully close take right there.
You can't take that. With 2 strikes, that's strike 3. Again, a lot of times guys don't swing at pitches not because they think it's a ball, but because they couldn't hit it. He was looking for something inside.
He struck him out. He went right back out there, and this time Wright did take a shot at it.
Well, he goes after this last fastball. It's off the plate. He threw the first fastball, was right in the middle of the plate. Watch where this first fastball is. And Wright misses it. Then he goes back out there. He gets another strike, and he wastes one. This is the one I thought was strike 3. And it's off the plate. He goes right almost in the exact same spot. And David Wright says, I better not take that again. And he reaches out and can't catch up with it.
I think that second pitch on which he swung, Joe, proved why he didn't swing at the first one. As you had speculated, there's a count of 0-1 now to Beltran, who has walked, grounded the first, and struck out. .335 average for the year, just back from the DL this week. Pedro and the Phillies leading by a run, and that is strike 2 called on the outside corner.
And maybe Pedro said to Charlie, hey, I can handle this. So he goes back out there.
Maybe he said it to him just the way he said it to Grady Little in the 2003 League Championship Series.
Oh, you shouldn't have gone there.
How'd that work out?
Yeah, you shouldn't have gone there.
I don't understand it, because the Pedro Martinez we're seeing, you have to ask yourself, is he on their playoff roster as a starting pitcher? Why set him up to get hurt? Why push it beyond 119 starts with his high pitches, but it was his last time out, 119 pitches.
Well, the last thing you want to do is set a guy up to fail. And he's got to be running out of gas. I don't care. He's 37 years old, first of all. Like you say, he threw 119 last time. He's over 110 now. I mean, what's the purpose?
This will be his 117th pitch. Chanho Park, the right-hander, and rookie Sergio Escalona, the left-hander, in the Phillies bullpen. The left-handed hitting Daniel Murphy is on deck. 1-2. 2-2 off the outside with a breaking ball. It was a breaking ball, change up. What was it?
A little change up to tail the way off the plate, a little too much.
Well, I'm surprised again because he's sending them right through the middle of their lineup. David Wright and Beltran and Murphy are their best hitters.
Just off the end. You see Pedro unhappy again with Todd Titchner.
When he pitches, it's an event, and he knows how to play to the energy, the emotion of the stadium. They want that pitch inside, and just doesn't quite get it. And he thought he had it. K-Zone says no. Pedro says, come on, I had it.
And the fans are getting on Titchner, the umpire, big time.
Well, that one was a little more off the plate than the David Wright pitch, so.
And this big crowd rises to its feet as one. Pedro Martinez, 3-2. Curveball. There is Utley. Out number 2.
again, that's what's so great about Pedro there. He hadn't thrown a curveball in a long time, fastball, changeup, and all of a sudden he comes back with that curveball. You can't recognize it out of his hand.
The plate umpire is hollering at the Phillies dugout. Maybe it's Charlie Manuel. And Charlie definitely got the attention of Todd Titchener, who took his mask off, which is sometimes prelude to getting the thumb.
So there's a curveball. Because you haven't seen it, he goes out of the zone to get it. See, this pitch kind of surprises you because you're looking fastball changeup. He hasn't thrown many curveballs, but when he's thrown them, they've been very effective.
The fans chanting, "Let's go, Pedro." Here is Murphy. Pitch number 120 from Pedro. He threw 119 on Tuesday, and now 120 in this one. Now a 2 down in the 8th inning. This is a blast from the past from Pedro. He's pitching in the part of the game where it was regular for him to pitch maybe 10 years ago, when he was 27, 28.
But what will 2 outings like this do to him is the question.
The changeup, 1 ball and 2 strikes. And the changeup, he just got a piece of it to stay alive. Desperation act there by Murphy. Phillies have a day off tomorrow, so Pedro would get an extra day before his next start. $45,000 behind Pedro solidly. The changeup fouled back to the screen as Pedro is into that deep reserve right now.
Well, we'll see if he comes inside with that fastball now. He's gone away soft a couple times, and he's tried twice on Beltran to go with that fastball inside for the called 3rd strike. He's got Murphy set up for it if he wants to go there.
And the fastball at 91 miles an hour, his 125th pitch of the night. He threw it 91.
Well, I think that was just to show him the fastball, because I think he's decided, I'm throwing him a changeup. I'm going to get him out with a changeup or a curve, something soft. But I think Pedro must have talked himself into this inning.
2-2. And a fastball at 91 again. And now it's a full count. Jeremy Reed, another left-handed hitter, on deck, would be next. Pedro Martinez, been more than 3 years since he finished the 8th inning of any start. And chop foul.
Interesting pitch there. Now that surprised me, and it surprised Murphy too. You see how late he was on that fastball.
And he cracked his bat on that one.
Well, I'm thinking, you know, he might throw that curveball again. He was missing with the changeup. He was fouling them off, but he hasn't seen the curveball.
He'd love to get a called 3rd strike and have this stadium just erupt.
Well, if you're Charlie Manuel, you just want him to get this guy out so you don't look.
On this next pitch,
yeah,
please.
right.
He struck out Murphy with a curve in the 1st inning. Murphy popped to short in the 3rd and flied out to right in the 6th. Pedro Martinez down the right field line. That ball is 1 hop against the wall. The barehanded grab by Worth, cut off on the throw by Utley. It is a double for Daniel Murphy, and Charlie Manuel makes the climb from the dugout. 128 pitches thrown by Pedro Martinez. The magic is still there.
Well, the magic is there, but 128 pitches is a lot of pitches, you know, for a normal starter this time of the year. But for a guy like Pedro, maybe he's not taking him out yet. But for a guy like Pedro, 37 years old, he's not taking him out. He's leaving him in.
I don't hear any dissent from 45,000 Phillies fans.
Well, you know what it is? Remember, like you were talking about Grady Little. If you go ask Pedro, what did you think he's going to say? He's going to say, I can give you one more. And I'm sure that's what he told Grady Little. I can get him. I can get one more out.
One of the best competitors ever, though. Right. I'll tell you what, he is some kind of warrior on the mound.
Well, whatever the future holds for Pedro, whether he'll pay a price for this night, we don't know. But what a ride it's been for all of us. The possible tying run at second. Here is Reed. A fastball for a strike at 90 miles an hour with his 129th pitch of the night.
And he's not afraid to go after these guys here in the inning. That's what surprised me. You would think that, well, I'm going to change up. He got a fastball down and in to Murphy, and Murphy was able to get the barrel of the bat on it. I don't think it was a good pitch.
Change up in the dirt. Murphy breaks for third. Ruiz throws, and he's out! The slide is retired, and Pedro Martinez got a break. Murphy made the final out of the inning at third. An ill-advised dash for an extra base, and Pedro to the dugout, 8 shutout innings. He had not done it in 8 years, which is throw at least 130 pitches in a start. The last time was at Seattle, May the 1st of 2001, when he was a member of the Boston Red Sox. Pedro Martinez 130th pitch, a changeup in the dirt, but it was turned into the final out of the 8th inning.
Well, there's normally 2 thoughts. You don't make the first out or the last out at third base. That's the normal situation. You see Ruiz makes a great play, quickly gets in a perfect throw, and Phillies applies the tag. Murphy, I don't know what Murphy was doing. It's 2 outs. You're already in scoring position, and you're 1 run down. Change up in the dirt. Good block, first of all, by Ruiz to keep it in front of him. He just grabs it, didn't have to take an extra step, and he's able to throw Murphy out.
But for Ruiz to throw a true accurate throw when his body's kind of tilting toward first base and his arm slots down a little lower than he wants. Watch how his arm kind of drops down to still throw a ball without a tailing action on it. He says as soon as he released it, he knew he had it, and he got out of it, playing to the crowd.
Ruiz is one of the best in the game.
Right.
Catching the ball, throwing the ball as a defensive catcher. I don't know that there are many better than him. And then moments ago, Charlie Manuel over to talk to Pedro, and Pedro, it's almost like Pedro said, hey, thanks for giving me the shot to do it.
Yeah, but do we know that he's out of the game?
No, we don't know that.
He's out. He's got his jacket.
Matt Stairs has already been introduced as a pinch hitter.
All right.
After Stairs was introduced as the pinch hitter, Feliciano was brought in to replace Sean Green.
All right.
And now Stairs has been replaced as a pinch hitter by another pinch hitter, Ben Francisco. So Pedro's not only out of the game, he's 3 removed from being out of the game.
Thank goodness.
As Feliciano, the Mets' outstanding left-handed short man late in the game with a slider for a strike to Francisco, who played game 1 in the outfield in place of Worth. Francisco hit a home run in that first game as he went 2 for 4. Well, what a thrilling night to see Pedro. It was a thrill 10 days ago to see him up against Tim Lincecum and outduel the young Giant star. 2-1 was the final in that game. Pedro went 7. But in that game, he only threw 87 pitches in his 7 innings, and the bullpen carried it in from there. In his last start, 6 2/3 innings, and finally at 119 pitches, they went and got him with 2 down in the 7th. So he did not finish the 7th in that start. Tonight, he finishes the 8th, 130 pitches. First time he'd done that since he was a 29-year-old man.
Wow.
He threw 136 in a game against Seattle as a member of the Red Sox back in 2001. There's Ryan Madson getting ready for the 9th inning.
That kind of answers our question, right?
As to who it would be, Madson or Lidge. I'm thinking it does. And that slider, strike 3 called to Francisco. Francisco acquired a one with Cliff Lee in the deal with Cleveland.
Brad Lidge right there watching, looking on as Madson warms up.
Well, Madson, who had the blown save here yesterday when David Wright hit a 2-run homer against him. So he'll get a shot to save one. And here is Jimmy Rollins, who has scored the only run of the game, and he scored it all the way back in the first inning. He led off the game with a walk against Tim Redding. And later in the inning, Chase Utley brought him in with a base hit that was off the left center field wall.
John, I think after being perfect last year, Brad Lidge is finding out that success is not a faithful girlfriend. It doesn't stick with you very long.
Changed up, and the count is 1 ball and 1 strike. Well, Brad Lidge has 10 blown saves this year, but he saved the first game. Well, under the rules, it was a save, although it was a perilous journey. He gave up 2 runs in the 9th inning and almost gave up a 3-run lead, which he was given to hold. But he threw 28 pitches in that game.
You guys have some good sayings. You got poems, you got sayings. I mean, I'll tell you what.
Well, success is definitely not a faithful girlfriend. I learned that myself when I was playing.
Success, an imposter. And out number 2, Anderson Hernandez. Nice play there by Hernandez to get his opposite number, Jimmy Rollins. 2 down. MLB.TV, the ultimate baseball experience, featuring 100 out-of-market games per week live on your computer. For more details, visit MLB.TV, where baseball is always on. I think Robert Service wrote a great poem about success, fame, and how they're both imposters.
See, you took it from the book. I took it from just growing up and living it.
The school of hard knocks.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's dribbled foul. Well, hey, David Wright knows what you're talking about. He had one of his best days as a big leaguer yesterday on a personal level. I'm not saying a team level, but he drove in 6 runs, equaling a career record. 2 home runs, including the game winner in the 9th inning. High drama. 0 for 4 in game 1 today. 1 for 4 with 3 strikeouts against Pedro Martinez in game 2. 1 hit, 8 at bats for yesterday's hero, Wright. Today and tonight, shallow right, and it is caught. I thought maybe Castillo would take charge of that one, but it was handled nicely by Murphy. Victorino retired. So Pedro Martinez left his heart and his guts out there in the mound at Citizens Bank Park. 8 innings and 130 pitches from his 37-year-old body. And now Ryan Madson will try and save it for him. Innings, 130 pitches thrown in the dugout. An observer now as Ryan Madson comes in to try and close it out for him with a 1-0 lead. And Jeremy Reed taking ball 1. Reed, Schneider, and Anderson Hernandez due up here. 2 left-handed hitters and a switch hitter. Madson 7 saves, 6 blown saves. Howard off his glove, grabs it, and Madson. So not only did Howard make the play, he performed a magic trick to boot.
Hey, I tell you, when he bobbled it the first time, I said, no way. Then he turned and made a perfect throw to Madson. You got to give Madson credit. He gets over there right away. Off his glove, he grabs it, and on the dead run, hits Madson perfectly.
Pedro's appreciation. I tell you, Ryan Howard a year ago might not have even gotten to that ball or recovered or had the agility to be able to turn and make the throw. He deserves a lot of credit for getting himself in shape, and he's a much better defensive first baseman this year.
Here is Schneider, 1 for 3 in the game, and a sinking fastball. And that's why it's always a puzzle. Why does Madson have a problem as a closer? He'd been one of the best 8th inning setup men, that's for sure, for 2 or 3 years. But he throws hard and a lot of movement on that pitch. Fastball in there at the knees at 95, and the count is quickly 0-2 to Schneider.
Sometimes I think his problem is, John, that he has that changeup, which is a great changeup, and he seems to want to throw it. We've seen 2 good sinking fastballs. He threw a changeup to David Wright yesterday.
And you stand hard here to Schneider. He second-guessed himself after the game yesterday, and he said, hey, I just want to find out if the guy's going to be maybe a little over-anxious, but I can't throw that changeup on the first pitch if I'm going to throw it in the strike zone like that. 0-2. That is strikes. Oh, he got a piece of it. All right. The plate umpire, Titchener, belatedly but ultimately did give us the foul ball signal. So it's 0-2. And Carlos Ruiz, who may have heard the foul ball, but he didn't take anything for granted. He was out chasing that ball like it was in play. I like the way Ruiz plays.
I tell you, he's a gamer. He really is. A lot of energy behind the plate, and great receiver. Throws the ball well, and he's handling the bat this year as well.
Jack Tashner, you saw a moment ago, out in the Phillies bullpen, a left-hander. He'll be ready if needed. Schneider at the plate with Hernandez due up next. And that is off the left field line, foul.
It's interesting. We've seen him. The first pitch was a beautiful sinking fastball. Now that fastball was a straight fastball, 97 miles an hour. The four-seamer, I guess. But as a closer in this situation, that good sinker, you get you the ground ball. He was going for the strikeout there.
Jeff Francoeur, by the way, has come out on deck. Not Hernandez. That one is whacked into right center field.
Well, he didn't throw the sinker again. That's the four-seam fastball. High fastball. I just don't understand it.
Well, I think, Joe, that's an element of overthrowing the fastball. You know, your body rushes out, your arm drags behind, and you elevate the pitch. I mean, it might sink if he slows his body down and gets that arm and hand on top of the ball, but he's rushing out there.
I think it was two different pitches because it was the fastball, the 97-mile-an-hour fastball is a four-seam fastball. I think the other ones were a two-seam fastball. Now watch this ball sink. Look at that. Now he's throwing two different. That's 95 miles an hour. See the difference in the speed? That's what I'm talking about. Now watch. Now he starts to overthrow. See how that ball stays straight? He's throwing a four-seam fastball, and that's where the speed is coming from. It adds more velocity, but it's straighter, and it just doesn't make any sense to me.
Especially in this ballpark,
right.
You got to, one-run game. You got to keep the ball in the ballpark, and the ball can sail out of here. Keep it down and make it pound it into the ground.
But that's also why, he's not a good closer.
Meanwhile, the wheels keep turning in a one-run ball game, and Wilson Valdez will go in as the runner, has gone in as the runner for Schneider, representing the possible tying run. You saw Rich Doobie, who has now gone to the mound to visit with Matson, and Jeff Francoeur has already been introduced as the pinch hitter for Anderson Hernandez. Francoeur, who not so long ago was the rising young star of the Atlanta Braves, a guy who hit with power, had a great right fielder's arm, but he fell upon hard times the last couple of years. Finally, the Braves traded him away. The Mets hoping that maybe he would find himself with them. He had 3 hits in game 1 of this doubleheader and is hitting .311 in 57 games as a Met. And a mighty cut. He didn't get it on that fastball. And the first pitch he saw this year, it was baseball's opening night right here on ESPN on a Sunday night back in early April. The first pitch he saw, he hit out of the ballpark for a home run as a member of the Braves here against the Phillies. Back and out of play. The count is 0-2. So Francoeur quickly behind in the count. Francoeur hitting .311. He's driven in 33 runs in 57 games as a Met. Angel Pagan, a switch hitter, has come out on deck. He struck him out.
Now that's when you take advantage of the four-seam fastball, throw it up and out of the strike zone with a guy like Francoeur, who is a free swinger and does not take a lot of pitches. Well, he starts him off with this is a sinking fastball. You see the movement on the ones when it's a sinking fastball. Then the riding fastball up there, you see that pretty much a straight fastball. The velocity's up, but the ball's pretty straight.
And so with 2 down in the ninth, here is Angel Pagan. Pagan, a switch hitter, hitting .306 in a 271 at bat, 6 home runs, 28 batted in. Played a lot of center field in the absence of Carlos Beltran. He struck out to end game 1. Little tap, foul.
So that's a beautiful pitch right there. See, I mean, you can't do anything with it. Usually a closer will have one dominant pitch, he'll stay with it, and that sinker should be his dominant pitch. I mean, and then the riding fastball up and out of the zone. He has not thrown any changeups today because that's the pitch that David Wright hit out of the ballpark, and I'm sure they told him, let's foul that for a while.
He's thrown 12 pitches in this inning, 11 strikes. That is right to Phillies, and the ball game is over.
I have to tell you, that was a great job of hitting right there. That sinker down and away, and he lined it right to Phillies.
And the night belongs to Pedro Martinez. Pedro throwing more pitches